Hey everybody, it's Carl from Carl's Opinion. How you doing tonight? And welcome to our Thursday night live call-in show. Welcome aboard everybody. Seeing Shonda in there, Laura, and let's see who else did I see in there? Nicholas Griffin. Hey, how you doing? Charity and Thomas Song. Hey, good seeing you guys. And got a lot of news to cover. My main headline was MSNBC equals the Chinese Ministry of Foreign of the Chinese Ministry of Information. Namely, MSNBC is equal pretty much to the Chinese Ministry of Information. And what I meant by that was I was watching MSNBC this morning on their morning show, and they had this real high-tech production, showing all the horrible things that are going to happen with the tariffs, Trump's tariffs, not United States tariffs, like as if Trump is collecting the money from the tariffs and putting it in his own pocket. No, it's going to the Department of Treasury, which is good for everybody. And in fact, he's going to be using a bunch of that money, it seems like, that he's collecting from the Chinese on tariffs. Basically, what a tariff is like, the Chinese, as soon as the goods hit the United States shores, whatever goods that are labeled, are designated, to be tariffed on, they get zapped with a 25%, fee, before they get unloaded off the boat. And, they have to write that check. The check's made payable to the Department of Treasury, and it goes right into our Treasury Department. And he's looking to use a bunch of that money to help our farmers. Because what the Chinese are trying to do is trying to drive a wedge, between, farmers and Americans, farmers and Trump, and people who want to buy iPhones, who, God forbid, they have to pay, instead of paying $1,000, they have to pay, hey, Jervis, how you doing there? Instead of paying $1,000 for the iPhone, they may have to pay, $1,140 for the iPhone. It only costs Apple $100. Needless to say, of course, the mainstream media, again, it's selective bias. What do they choose to cover? Do they choose to cover how cruel the Chinese are to their own citizens, how Apple makes a fortune because they're able to have child labor, child slave labor in their factories in China, and people have to sleep on bunk beds, and they can't leave their facilities, and they have to have these nets around like the second floor, third floor lobbies, where the employees work and are housed. So because a lot of people want to try to commit suicide because they can't get away, that kind of stuff. They don't cover that story. They cover the story I'm going to cover here in a little bit. How the Chinese basically have concentration camps for Muslims. And, we can say what you want about Muslims or this and the other, but, you don't be locking people up in concentration camps because you disagree with their religion. I mean, we don't do that here. Okay, we just don't. Now, you may want to say, okay, you come from certain countries that are unstable. You come from certain countries that don't have an effective government. You come from certain countries that mean to do us harm. Yeah, we'll impose a travel ban. That's like a million miles away from actually locking somebody up in a concentration camp. It's a little bit different. So what they're doing over there in China is cruel. They don't cover those stories, though. I mean, when was the last time you heard about concentration camps in China? Locking up Muslims. They're all quiet about that, and they're quiet about the slave labor they employ to sell us their cheap goods. They don't cover stories like that. So they cover, oh, you have to pay more for shoes. Oh, you have to pay more for that. But, what Trump said as far as the farmers goes, because China buys about half our soybean production here in the United States, and these are big ranches. This isn't like some family farm, with like, maybe, 140 acres or 40 acres or 160 acres rather. These are thousands of acres, tens of thousands of acres, large projects, large lots of heavy equipment and everything. And Trump says, okay, look, we're going to take the best year, and then the best year where China bought the most farm products from the United States, and say that's $20 billion, whatever it is, 30 billion. And we're going to match that dollar amount as a subsidy to the farmers, kind of like what he did last time, but this will be a little bit bigger, a lot bigger actually. And of course, like I said the other night, Democrats, of course, have to vote for it. Fox is the name of the company. Yeah, it's right. And they did build a plant here in Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken. But still, they don't do slave labor in the United States, so we have certain laws against that. But yeah, they don't cover that. So I mean, all they were talking about is, oh, it's going to cost more for this, cost more for that. And the one female commentators like, oh, when you mentioned shoes, it really got to me. Well, how about like, maybe the jobs that, people have lost over the last couple of decades because of our, allowing China to have, trading status with the United States and entering these awful trade agreements with China. and not enforcing any of the rules against China. How about all the families that? Why don't you show some families that lost, that became homeless, or show some of the families that had to pick up and move and leave everything behind, or why don't you show like the number of people that are now that are now having really good jobs in the Trump economy, because of the fact that he's playing tough on trade with, not just China, but with the European Union, Japan, South Korea, Mexico, Canada. Why don't you show that? Why don't you show those stories? Instead they choose to show the stories. Oh, you want to pay more for shoes. Oh, woe is us, woe is us. And Trump had the best answer. It was great. It's like, well, if you don't want to worry about tariffs, just buy stuff made in America. Then he even told like the companies that distribute things, like I guess he was like talking to Walmart and stuff. He says, look, if you don't worry about tariffs, I'd rather you buy from made in America. But if you're not going to do that, we'll buy from another country, like Vietnam. Of course, he said Vietnam, and he made it the way he said it was just so off the cuff. But he said trust me, that was intentional because there's a lot of bad blood between China and Vietnam, and the last thing China wants to see is Vietnam moving up the ladder and being a really big competitor to China, which they're already starting to get wedged into, if you will. Vietnam is very much interested in doing bilateral trade agreements with us. They've been talking to the Trump administration. It's like, you don't have to buy from the Chinese. We'll sell it to you, and we'll be fair about it. And your companies can do business over here, and we're not going to make them, give away their technology and everything. I mean, trust me, China's not the only game in town. We buy from them. Okay, they don't do anything for us. They buy some of our farm products. And let's be honest about that. They sell us manufactured goods. Okay, we sell them raw materials, raw products, farm goods, things of that sort. And and it was funny because I was thinking this morning when I was watching all this, like, oh, it's going to be so. Hey, Forbidden, how you doing there? Good seeing you. I was watching this morning, this coverage on MSNBC, and they're saying like, oh, gee, it's going to be so expensive to do this trade war with China. Maybe we shouldn't. It's going to cost us. We have to pay more for shoes. And I immediately started thinking about like the Civil War. You can imagine like in 1860, it's like, oh, we shouldn't go to war with the South because they have cotton and it's going to cost more to buy this dress. It's going to cost more to buy these shirts and these ties and these pants. If we go to war with the South, so we maybe just ought to avoid that. Just let them keep the slaves, whatever, no big deal. We don't need to go to war. It can be too much of an inconvenience for me. I may have to pay a few more dollars for a pair of pants. And then you think about when we went to war in World War II, against Germany and Japan. Maybe make the same argument. It's like, oh, well, if we go to war with Germany and Japan, we're going to have to, we had, rationing going on in World War II. I mean, I wasn't around, but, I know how to read a book and watch a movie and watch a documentary. We had rationing going on. You couldn't, tires weren't available, cars, forget that. Most of the auto manufacturers in Detroit were building trucks and Jeeps and tanks, for the war effort. So it was very hard to buy a new car. It was very hard to buy tires. A lot oil, forget it. Gasoline was rationed as well. You got little ration cards. I guess the American people could have been, well, this is really a drag. I can't fill up my car today. I can't drive into the country to just go for a ride because we're at war with Japan and Germany. It's like, well, maybe we shouldn't go to war with them. Yeah, Japan bombed us, but I don't want to give up my ability to buy a new car this summer. I don't want to give up my ability to, maybe go for a ride because I can't fill up my car with gas, or I can't buy new tires, or maybe clothing is in short supply because they're using all the textile mills are making uniforms and stuff. But the mainstream media is just like real. I mean, I don't want to say treasonous, but I will. It's like real treasonous. A bunch of traitors there. Not backing up, the United States on a United States-Chinese trade war. And I guess what's the alternative? They're happy with a $500 billion trade deficit? Is that what they're happy with? No. But, I mean, it's basically they're just like speaking Chinese propaganda, because they hate Donald Trump so much. This is President Obama doing it. It'd be like, oh, this is China's bad. The stories be just the opposite. There would be stories of like this farmer who maybe makes a little bit less, or you have to pay a little bit more at the dress store. Or, this head of lettuce, instead of being, $1.29, is now $1.59 for a head of lettuce. No, they'd be showing you stories about how awful the Chinese government is, and how badly they treat their people. And then you see the stories about the concentration camps and the slave labor and all that. Then you see all those stories on mainstream media. But, they hate Trump so much, they're willing to, sell out our own country, sell out their fellow Americans. And they have no care or concern, obviously, for their fellow Americans. These people are making 6-7-figure incomes a year. They live in their, high-rise apartments in Manhattan or, in Virginia. And, they don't care. They don't care about the average American. They're inconvenienced because they have to pay a little bit more for clothes or or for shoes or for their new iPhone or whatever. So okay, we just keep things the way they are. Keep the trade deficit. Keep giving away manufacturing jobs to the Chinese. I mean, if they had their way, I mean, look, if things don't change, this $500 billion deficit, next year, I don't know, 550 billion, 600 billion. Then a year after that, maybe 700 billion. How many more American jobs do we have to lose just so somebody can have cheap shoes? I mean, when does that end? I mean, enough's enough already. So, but anyway, let's get to our first story. It was a live call-in show tonight. Obviously, its call-in number is 775-273-8970. And if you want to do a video call-in, just put in the chat, hey, I want to do a video call. If I've emailed you back and forth, just I'll shoot you an email with the link. If I've never emailed you before, or you never emailed me before, you'll have to just send me an email to ca2jogger@gmail.com. That's ca2jogger, that's my last name, at gmail.com. And then when I get your email, I'll shoot you a reply, and the reply will be a link. Same thing, hit the link and just a couple of hits. Type in your username, hit join call, and you're in. Big deal. They're very simple, not hard to do at all. Or, like I said, if you just want to call in, it's even easier. Just 775-273-8970. That's easy. That's just using a phone. That's super easy, so no big deal there. Anyway, let's get to our first story. Texas asserts sovereign immunity. I caught this in the Washington Times today, and I wanted to cover it. So Texas asserts sovereign immunity against Congress. All right. Texas, okay, this is by Stephen Dinan, of the Washington Times. Texas asserting its sovereign immunity against Congress, telling Democrats on 2 congressional committees this week that the state has no obligation to comply with their investigative demands. Attorney General Ken Paxton's office says that as a state with sovereign powers under the Constitution, Texas can't be treated like a federal agency or cabinet secretary who can be compelled to comply. Texas does not draw its authority from the United States or the United States Constitution, but from its status as a dual sovereign within the Union. Jeffrey C. Mateer, First Assistant Attorney General, wrote in a letter Monday to the House Oversight and Reform Committee. Mr. Mateer fired off a similar letter Wednesday to the House Ways and Means Committee, rebuffing its attempt, saying the state would stand to be treated like a subdivision of the federal government or a private citizen, which is not. And I had, what's his name? Let me see what his name is. I want to say it was Gerard Cote. I had him on when I was doing the Wild West Extravaganza show here in Pahrump. I had him on. I interviewed him that Sunday, last Sunday. And he was talking about the sovereignty, how in the Treaty of Paris in 1783, when we were ending the Revolutionary War, how it was providing the king was providing sovereignty to each of the citizens of the soon-to-be United States of America. It was granting them sovereignty over themselves. And we look at the Constitution with like the 10th Amendment to the Bill of Rights, and how even within the body of the Constitution, not just the amendments, how each of the states are a separate sovereign entity that are joining to, quote unquote, form a more perfect union. Okay, so the states were joining to form a union. The first states didn't join the union. It wasn't a union, they joined it. They were forming to, become, a union, a more perfect union. That's the whole point of the Constitution. So what Mateer is saying, what the Texas Attorney General is saying, hey, you can't just subpoena us. You can't just compel us, to be part of your investigation. We're a separate sovereign entity. We're a state. We're not a cabinet official. We're not, anything like this. So it's kind of interesting, the states, exercising their constitutional authority. And, it's kind of hard for the Democrats in Congress to kind of yell and scream at that because what do we have? We have sanctuary cities. The state of California voted to become a sanctuary state, pretty much saying they don't have to obey federal law, or they don't have to. It's against the law for their law enforcement officers to even talk to a federal law enforcement agent like ICE and say, "Hey, by the way, we have an illegal alien here. Do you guys want to come look at him?" We covered the other night how it looks like they're going to get around that, which is kind of funny. Anyway, so Mateer goes on to write, granting Congress the power to exercise oversight over the constitutional officers of a state engaged in the lawful exercise of that state's core authority would undermine the fabric of our system of dual sovereignty. The defiance in some ways tracks that of President Trump, who has said House Democrats' investigations into the president's business, family, and myriad official actions are harassment. Texas is objecting to Democrats' request for documents probing the state's efforts to clean up its voter rolls and documents detailing the state's efforts to protect faith-based adoption and foster care providers against an Obama-era rule about working with same-sex couples. The clash could break new legal ground. Not real new, but yeah, kind of new. Ken Cuccinelli, a former Republican Attorney General of Virginia, said he never encountered the situation during his time in office, but he added that two constitutional principles are at stake. One, the sovereignty of states, and two, the supremacy clause, which gives the federal government an edge in clashes with the states. He said Texas makes a strong case in its letters for why it will prevail. Congress doesn't get to do oversight over states, period. Nor can they compel action by state officers. He said. Then he goes on to say, if I were a betting man, I'd take Texas and give 2 touchdowns in this one. Take Texas in the points, give 14 points. Josh Blackman, a professor at South Texas College of Law in Houston, said the House committees have issued requests only for documents. Things will get more complicated if either committee feels strong enough to approve subpoenas. Mr. Blackman said Texas could try to head that off by suing first, picking a court in Texas and asking for a temporary restraining order against having to turn over any documents while the state argues its case that its officers aren't subject to federal demands. He said prior Supreme Court cases have held that Congress can't commandeer a state to enact laws, nor can it force state officials to perform tasks such as run background checks on firearms purchases. You've seen that with some of the states refusing to send National Guard troops to the border. If you notice, Trump didn't go to court and sue the state to make him do it. No, because he was told, hey, we got this dual sovereignty thing, and the National Guard is under the control of the governor of the state, and if the governor doesn't want to, send troops to send National Guardsmen to the border, well, that's their prerogative. If you notice, nobody in the Trump administration said they were going to somehow force the governor to send the National Guard to the border. Remember, they make requests of the states. We'd like you to send National Guard troops to the border. Okay, it's a request. So people in the Trump administration at least understand the Constitution. Some of the Democrats, I think, they generally they'll say it's something's a constitutional crisis, but only when it's like favoring them. But they have no problem violating the Constitution every day of the week. Somebody wrote an Axis site earlier. It's like something about like the Second Amendment and things like that. Let's see. So then this professor goes on to say, I usually think of commandeering in the context of legislation, but I don't see any reason why you have to limit to legislation, he said. It's that Congress can't give orders pursuant to legislative power to tell states what to do. Neither the Oversight nor Ways and Means Committee responded to requests for comment on Texas's challenge, nor did the office of Representative Jamie Raskin, the Maryland Democrat who chairs an Oversight Committee, looking into the voting issue. If you remember, like the feds will set speed limits on interstate highways, and they'll say, okay, you can't go above 65 miles an hour or 55. And you remember how they got the states to do that? They didn't order the states to put to change their laws as far as how fast it was to be going speeding on an interstate highway. No, because they couldn't. They couldn't say, okay, you must have a law that says you can't go over 55 miles per hour on the highway. Because remember, that was done during the early 70s to cut back on fuel consumption, that kind of stuff. And eventually, the speed limits have gone back up, thank God. But what they did was they said, well, I tell you what, if you don't change the law, we're going to withhold federal funds for interstate highways in your state. So they use the power of the purse. Now people say, well, gee, how come they couldn't do that with sanctuary cities? Well, the reasoning on what the courts have come down and say is like you can't take money from law enforcement because somebody's a sanctuary city or not, because they really didn't have a complete. Well, I can't remember the language of the case. It was almost like a nexus. Like it wasn't like a one-for-one nexus. Whereas, saying, okay, look, we want to reduce speeds on interstate highways. One, it's an interstate highway. That's one. So the feds kind of get in there a little bit. And then two, dealing with safety, and it's dealing with health, and it's also dealing with, fuel consumption, issues where the feds have a vested interest. And, so it was okay to withhold that kind of money. So they could do it. But if you notice, they didn't force the states to do it. The feds couldn't tell the states you have to change the speed limit on the highways. So there you go. So let's see what we got here. So yeah, Jervis, how you doing? But anyway, so that this is a little interesting little fight going on here. So it's kind of interesting how this is going to go. So let's see. Let's see. After a previous exchange, though, the Oversight Committee brushed aside Texas's claim of sovereignty. Everybody, oh, that's silly. What's that? They'll say that, and the mainstream media will go, oh, yeah, that's silly. What's that? And insisted that the information would eventually be turned over. Investigating the states is not new to Congress. In recent years, the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee investigated the drinking water problem in Flint, Michigan, sparring with then-Governor Rick Snyder over access to state documents. It also investigated Oregon's implementation of its Obamacare website, finding enough fault to ask for criminal charges to be brought against state officials. In these new cases, the Oversight Committee is probing Texas's announcement this year that it found some 95,000 names on voter rolls it suspected of being non-citizens. The state moved to begin to purge the names during a lawsuit from Hispanic and voters' rights groups. The sides reached a settlement last month. The Ways and Means investigation, meanwhile, deals with a request Texas made last year to the Federal Health and Human Service Department asking to be freed from Obama-era rules denying assistance to states that certify faith-based adoption or foster parent organizations that won't work with same-sex couples. Ms. Matier in his letter said the committees are entitled to ask federal agencies for information they have, including communications with Texas. He also said they are entitled to any documents from Texas that a citizen would be able to get through the state's open records laws. The Texas Attorney General's office also questioned the validity of the committee's inquiries, saying they haven't identified a valid legislative purpose. The Supreme Court has held that while Capitol has broad investigative powers, they must be tethered to some lawmaking, either now or with the prospect of legislating. That is the same argument the Trump administration made this week in objecting to the expansive document demands from the House Judiciary Committee, which is looking to redo and expand on the special counsel's report into the 2016 election and Russian meddling. In the case of the voting inquiry, Mr. Matier said there is no right for non-citizens to vote, so there is nothing Congress could legislate over. True. I mean, completely true. So, all right, let's see here. And let's see. And our next story is about Western companies getting tangled in China's Muslim clampdown, and we were talking about this earlier. So let's see here. I'm going to grab a cigarette real quick. Hold on. And this is from the Wall Street Journal. And this talks about somebody's finally covering the Muslim clampdown in China. And it's kind of, how the Wall Street Journal covers this is, of course, the Wall Street Journal, so they're coming from a business perspective. And so they say Kraft Heinz, Adidas, and Gap are among the companies whose supply chains run through Xinjiang. Xinjiang, I guess the name of the city where the concentration camps are. So let's take a look at this story. It's by Eva Dao and Chao Dang of the Wall Street Journal. Okay. As to China, Western companies, including brand name apparel makers and food companies, have become entangled in China's campaign to forcibly assimilate its Muslim population. Excuse me. Adidas, AG, Heinz, and Moritz AB, Kraft Heinz Company, Coca-Cola Company, and Gap Inc. are among those at the end of the long, open, opaque supply chains that travel through China's northwest region of Xinjiang. Residents there are routinely forced into training programs that feed workers to area factories, according to locals' official notices and state media. Political indoctrination is a significant component of the programs, which are aimed at ethnic Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities, according to official notices. Along with vocational skills, the curriculum covers Mandarin Chinese, the importance of the Communist Party and national unity, Chinese law, and how to counter extremism, such as not dressing too conservatively or praying too frequently. The programs can include military-like drills. And see, here's a little picture here. After locking up as many as 1 million people in camps in Xinjiang, Chinese authorities are destroying Uyghur neighborhoods and purging the region's culture. They say they're fighting terrorism. Their aim to engineer a society loyal to Beijing. Yeah, nobody else is covering this. It's crazy. I mean, again, if Obama was in office and he said one bad word about it, there'd be like 24/7 news coverage. But nobody's covering this. Chinese get a pass. Why? Because Trump's in office and we hate Trump. Like, oh, Trump bad. So if he's going against China, that must make China good. Remember the saying, an enemy of my enemy is my friend? Well, I guess they figure in this trade war, China is the enemy of the United States and Trump, and they don't like Trump, and so, hey, I guess they're friends with the Chinese, and they're not going to cover any of the stories on China. Anyway, for workers and factory bosses, resistance to such programs could result in detention as expected extremist sympathizers. Some companies said such compulsory training programs would contravene their policies for suppliers, which mandate responsible workplace conditions free of discrimination. Right. So in other words, these companies have these policies in place, right? Like where they do business, they have to have no discrimination and things like that. Certain workplace conditions have to be adhered to. But these companies are doing business in China in this area, and in this area you have all this forced indoctrination, training camps, concentration camps, really, where they take people out of these cities and neighborhoods and they take them to a camp and they pretty much go and wreck the city, destroy any kind of religious symbols or anything like that. Anything, probably knocking down mosques and stuff like that. So anyway, so much of this is taking place under the radar. Yeah, under the radar because nobody's covering it. I mean, you got to read about this in Wall Street Journal. The only reason why they're covering because it deals with the bottom line of some companies. Which, okay, fine. I mean, as long as somebody's covering the damn thing, I don't care how they got there, but thank God. Okay, much of this has taken place under the radar. Beijing has directed Chinese companies to bring jobs to Xinjiang, often through subcontracting that isn't known to Western companies, as part of the government's effort to reduce what it says is violence and religious extremism in the area. Authorities in Xinjiang have also put in place aggressive surveillance measures, raised, meaning destroyed, taken down, blown up, traditional Uyghur neighborhoods, and drawn international protests over detention camps for Muslims. Well, there's really not too many protests going on because, again, a lot of countries in Europe that would only be crying about this kind of stuff, a lot of them do business with China. Okay, just the way it is. And drawing international protests over detention camps for Muslims, a separate category from the job training programs. Let's see. In interviews, local officials said residents weren't being forced into training programs and that they are helping impoverished residents find jobs, by destroying their neighborhoods and locking them up and then making them work somewhere. Okay. Xinjiang's government said in a written statement there is no forced labor in the region and called any talk of it rumor and slander. There we go. A large mill for a Hafu fashion company in Aksu runs its workers through a month-long job training program in cooperation with the government. The city near China's border with Kyrgyzstan is blanketed in razor wire, police checkpoints, and security cameras. But you're free to go anytime you want. 3/4 of its residents are Uyghur. A photo and an online announcement for Hafu's training site opened in December 2017 with 600 trainees shows female workers dressed in camouflage standing at attention. The factory is billed as the world's largest mixed-color cotton yarn mill. The local government said in an official notice that Hafu's site was part of the establishment of large-scale vocational training. It's indoctrination camps, re-education camps. So now we call them vocational training sites. And nobody cares. Hey, Effie, how you doing there, young lady? Let's see. There we go. Well, let's see. Speaking to residents is difficult. Yeah, they don't want to talk to them. They're going to get locked up. Local officials interrupted interviews during the Wall Street Journal's recent trip to the region. Wow, they were interrupting the Wall Street Journal. That's how bad it's getting. Well, I'm sure they didn't arrest anybody from the Wall Street Journal because, I mean, trust me, the Wall Street Journal will be running hit pieces on China for the next year. If you want, that's probably not a good newspaper to piss off because they're generally pro-China on trade and stuff because, the Wall Street Journal, a lot of their clients, the people who support them, make a lot of money on import-export, regardless of the toll it takes on the American worker in the United States. Local officials interrupted interviews during the Wall Street Journal's recent trip to the region. In one interview near the Hafa Mill with officials hovering nearby, 20-year-old Subanar Gojam and a co-worker said they had come to the factory from a training program. Before I used to have, this guy goes on to say, before I used to have extremist thoughts, but now they're all gone. What the hell does that mean? Well, the problem is, look, I know some people are like, hey, screw the Muslims, screw terrorism. But let's be honest. I mean, these guys all have, terrorist thoughts. That's what's going on over there in that part of China. No, of course not. No, they just want people to conform to their viewpoint and to sit there. Don't be jumping up and down about this because this can happen here. Okay, with conservative viewpoints. Axe just got a strike. That's why I didn't see it. I didn't see that he was on. I had to go find his other site. Because of what it probably is deemed to be extremist thoughts. Mark Dice gets demonetized because of quote unquote extremist thoughts. Sargon of Akkad, God, I can't remember his freaking site name. Sargon of Akkad, whatever the shit. Anyway, Sargon. Anyway, he lost Patreon and PayPal and all those things. As far as getting funding because he had quote unquote extremist thoughts and views. Okay. So, so let's not, regardless of who they're doing it to, don't think it's not going to be happening here and happening to you, because it's happening to us right now. Again, I had to go find Axe's site because they gave him a strike for covering a story that everybody else was covering. Okay, they just didn't like him. And now, so he had he won't be back up on his regular channel till I think Monday. So just remember, um, you know, just remember it's like, oh well, yeah, nail them. Well, no, we'll nail them. Who are they going to nail tomorrow? And then if we go along with this and we don't call it out over there, what's to stop people from doing it over here? And they're doing it right now. Doing it right now. How many conservatives have been taken down off of Facebook, YouTube, etc. All right. So after she was heard, let's see. Again, before I used to have extremist thoughts, but now they're all gone, Ms. Gojam said. After she was heard telling reporters she had been in a training center, officials took her into a room in an adjacent restaurant. She then returned and said, they say it's secret. Oh, we got a call coming in. Hey, Effie, how you doing?
Hey.
Hello?
I'm calling Mr. Carl.
Huh.
Can you hear me okay?
Hello? Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me? Do I need to move?
No. I had my headphone turned off.
Okay. I thought I might have been in a bad spot again.
No.
Okay.
No, you sound good. How you doing?
Hey, Chad. I'm doing okay. I had to sit down. I've been working. I got caught up in some painting and wore myself out. You really get involved in a project and then you realize I can't move my back.
Oh, yeah.
So,
no, not good.
Yeah, I was working on some of my work, my other work, which is I got 5 jobs, but one of my jobs is that I have a small gallery and I put some of my own work in there, and so
you have a gallery. Hold it. Stop. Slow down. You have a gallery.
Stop.
Like a
storefront.
A storefront.
I'm sorry?
You mean like a storefront kind of thing, or in your house, or what?
No, it's a shop. It's a little shop was selling my work in another gallery downtown, and I ended up instead I rent a small shop out inside of a bigger shop, so it's a shop within a shop, so I don't have to be there.
Gotcha.
So
oh no, that makes sense. Yeah. So like you give them like a percentage of the. Like it's almost like a
yeah.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah,
Good deal.
They
that
take
works.
care of the point of sale stuff, and I just fill the space, and it's so much easier for me at this stage in my life right now, and
well, plus
other
it's a
things
win-win.
that I'm doing.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
tell us about that.
So,
Stop. Tell us about that. Yeah, that's exciting.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's just
well,
my
shit.
work,
I don't do that. I mean, how many of us on this site paint and have stuff in a gallery and people come and buy it? I don't do that. I mean, that's exciting. Tell us about it.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm. That's nice. I appreciate the excitement on it. I have. I've done this for years. What I did. Like I said, I worked with other galleries, but what I decided to do this year was more get my own business up and running. So this is a middle sort of stage. Like I said about other things, I have short-term plans, medium-term plans, and long-term plans. And so I'm in the middle stage on this one.
Well,
and the next stage is that I'm going back.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
No, go ahead. Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt.
I was going to say the long term is that I'm going back to my own full storefront where then I will have my other artists renting space from me. So it'll kind of be a reverse of the current scenario, but
right. So like they pay your overhead.
I'm not ready to do that.
Yeah, they pay your overhead, and then you make profit on your own stuff.
Exactly. So I'll be still selling my own work, but I'll also provide space for other local artists to have their stuff.
I mean, so like, do people buy your stuff?
Yeah, or else I wouldn't be able to make rent.
No, but I mean, like, what do you? Okay, I know nothing about art, but like, what would you call your art? Like the nouveau, or classical, or
no. I do. Yeah, practical. I make furniture and decorative items. So I like to make things that are functional.
Hmm.
And I've always been that way. So I can engage both my engineering side of my brain and the creative side of my brain in the same project.
You mean furniture like
So
chairs and couches and tables and stuff?
mostly, yeah, mostly tables because I sandblast glass. I have a sandblaster,
Okay.
and I etch um, pictures into the tabletops, and those sell really well.
No shit.
So,
Wow. So like you're
yeah,
like got
yeah, those are
carpentry
fun.
skills and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. I always have had that. My brother's a general contractor. I used to work with him. So,
Wow. Okay.
so I built houses,
Yeah. So like like use a hammer and a saw
I
and a
have, yeah,
sander.
I have a toolbox as big as me.
Oh
I love my
wow.
tools.
Yeah, I used to do
Yeah, yeah.
drywall carpentry with metal studs and sheetrock.
I've done that. Yeah, I've done tiling. I've done plumbing. I've done pretty much everything except for roofing because I just don't want to do that. My brother got injured more than once doing roofing. And I was like, you're not getting
Yeah.
me up there. But
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of
I
yeah.
don't like electrical wiring, but I'll do it if I have to. Just makes me uncomfortable.
Wow.
But
So
but I
you're
do.
selling
That's one of
like
the things I
art.
actually do in my shop is I make lamps too. So.
Well, you said something. Was it you? No, that was none of your business with the pottery and stuff. But you make lamps and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Well, no shit.
I make lamps out of yeah. What I refurbish old lamps and I kind of do a collage art and I put things together and make new lamps out of old things and that sort of thing. So I enjoy that.
Wow.
Giving life to old, broken, destroyed things is kind of what I like to do. Make it new.
Yeah. Well, that sounds awesome.
So
I mean, I didn't know that about you.
it,
I mean,
it's
shit.
it's more. It's kind of for this stage. It's kind of a therapy. You know, like
Well,
to get my
yeah.
hands all painty and
Sure. Yeah.
that
No, you
sort of
work with
thing.
your hands. Yeah. Sure. That's like you create something. You know.
Yeah, yeah. So the other stuff that I do, when I'm working various things that I do online for clients, those things are, it's just work. You have to just sit and concentrate, and it's no fun, and make sure you're caffeinated and all that. But
Right.
the painting is like therapeutic. I feel better after a painting session, even if I make my back hurt. I feel
Yeah.
better
Well, you got to be
after.
careful with your back.
You know.
I mean,
Oh
that's
yeah.
like. I mean, remember that was I off for like a week? Wasn't that like sometime in
Yeah, I
January or something?
remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I was sitting here
Hmm.
and I hurt my back like a day before, day and a half before, something like that. And I thought it was better, and because I use a TENS unit, little portable ones, plug in or we put batteries in rather, and I felt better.
Right. Right.
So I went to work and I kind of like overdid it as far as like you're just carrying stuff, doing a lot of walking up and down, not thinking before I was moving. And I got home and I felt kind of okay. And then I sat here on this couch and all of a sudden I was talking to douchebag, in fact, on a call in, and it was like 15, 20 minutes in, and I said, "Hey, I got to cut this off. My back is killing me. I mean, it hurt." And I had to cut the stream off 20 minutes in, and he was like, "Well, what? What?" I go, "No, no, you don't get it. I'm hanging up. I gotta go." And I was down for about a week. I went to court and stuff,
Yeah, it's
but
amazing how
yeah,
that can creep up on you, and you're suddenly debilitated, and it's like, wait a minute, I didn't think it was that bad. And the next thing you know, you can't move.
yeah,
Yeah, the back is a stern taskmaster. You don't
yeah,
want to tick off your back. That's for
yeah. I was having to wear like
yeah.
tennis
So
shoes in the
I try to
court.
be good to my back.
Well, you were saying you worked in
Hmm.
construction, and so when I was younger,
Uh huh.
I used to do
Yeah.
commercial, so I used to use like oxygen and acetylene tanks. Well, in order to put the oxygen and acetylene tanks on the man lift, you used to have to dismantle the valves. Well, I was kind of a real
Uh-huh.
go-getter, and I didn't want to wait for the man lift, and I didn't want to dismantle the valves, so I would just take them side by side, and I throw them over my shoulder, and I go up a commercial stairway to the next floor, which is a big
Uh-huh.
stairway. It's not like a residential stairway. And I do that,
Sure.
do. And all these older guys, like my age now, would say, "Oh, you're gonna pay for that when you get older." And I'm like, "Oh, when I'm older, I'll be dead. I don't care." Right? And then of course now I'm older,
Oh,
and
yeah.
now I'm paying for it. They were right.
Absolutely.
you know.
That's true.
So
I was always one to, when I learned rules like how to lift with your knees and those sorts of things. I was always very much a stickler for those rules. So I've been very careful. I was in sports when I was young, and I learned, you know, certain techniques to protect your joints, protect your back, and all that sort of thing. And I was always very much, okay, that's how you do it, then that's how I'll do it. I was a
right.
stickler for the rules. So
No, I
I
was
imagine I'd be a lot worse off.
I was young, dumb, and full of cum. I was
Yeah,
135
it's
pounds,
just
and I
no
was lifting up
accounting for
stuff.
that Y chromosome, I guess.
No, no. Well, hey, look, we created civilization. Wait, I'll do a
Yeah.
scene from Sling Blade. You know, I'm a carpenter. I build things. Do you know how important that is for the world? I mean, really? Remember that from Sling Blade, um, the
No,
movie
I
star?
don't think I've know Sling Blade.
Oh,
I don't think I know
Billy
that.
Bob Thornton. Yeah.
Nope, don't know it.
Oh my God, good redneck movie. I'm
No.
surprised you didn't see it. It was in a
Well,
redneck town like in
I'm
Alabama
kind
or
of
something.
out of the loop with more relatively recent pop culture because I just have my own thing I do,
Yeah, this movie was from the
So, I
'90s.
mean, it's enough for me to keep up with
Well, yeah, but I mean,
political
this movie
pop
was like
culture, but
1997.
keeping up.
This movie was like 1997. Billy
Yeah,
Bob
like,
Thornton, Academy Award.
yeah, so that's about when I dropped out.
Oh, okay.
So,
No,
yeah, the last
yeah,
20 years, that's the reason I'm saying recent.
gotcha. Yeah, recent, 20 years ago. Yeah. Well, you know what? It feels like
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
I think back 20 years ago. It's like 20 minutes ago. It's like shit. Really?
sure.
You know, it's like
Sure.
Tucker. It's
Well,
funny.
keeping in mind, my son is 18, so I did
Right.
literally nothing for the last 18 years.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't,
right. Your
watch
kid is autistic
much.
and everything too. Yeah. So you got a lot of
Yeah,
time
so
on
I
your
don't,
hands.
yeah.
Right.
I didn't go to movies. Are you kidding? Some movies in my life. So, no, yeah, I'm
Well,
just
I'm
not a
surprised you
movie
find the
person per
time to
se
do all
anyway.
this like carpentry and furniture and art and painting and stuff.
Yeah, well, I work around it. I still like at this point I have more time, but when he was younger, there was no time for anything. I did have a business when he was young where I sold in magazines my furniture. I had a
Wow.
local carpenter help me, and I designed furniture, and he produced the base part of the unit, and then I completed it and decorated it and sold it in a Country Sampler magazine and some other stuff, some other magazines. So that's what I was able to do at the time. But then I also designed websites at the time as well, so I could work, when I had time around his schedule.
Yeah. So like he would do
So,
the base and you do the tabletop, right? And then you do your sandblasting and all that stuff.
well, back then I did oil painting, but yes, it's pretty much
Right.
the same
Well, I'm just
principle.
trying to imagine you with like a sandblaster, with the goggles on, and the gloves, and there you
Yeah,
are,
well, you don't have to imagine because my old icon was a picture of me working. I had
Oh, I never
goggles
paid
and I
attention to
had
any of that. I don't look
the
at the
face
chat.
mask and the full thing.
Nah, I don't. I don't even know who you people are.
So
I, you know,
I changed
I
it
don't
because I
know.
thought it was a scary picture.
Oh,
People thought I would look aggressive in that picture because my goggles were black and my face mask was black and my hair was bright pink at the time, and I had that as my picture, my icon, and I
trying to be
looked
a
like
badass.
somebody from what's that movie with Mel Gibson? Blade Runner? No, Blade Runner.
No.
I,
The one in Australia. Is that what you're talking about?
the post-apocalyptic kind of look.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of look.
Mel Gibson. God, how do I not remember that movie? Shit. I've only seen it like 20 times. You know, it's a guy movie. All guys
Mad
go see that.
Max.
Mad
Mad
Max.
Max.
Right.
Mad
Mad
Max.
Max. Yeah, the first one wasn't
Yeah,
called
yeah.
Mad Max, was it? What was it called? The very first one.
I
Yeah, it
don't
might have been. It might have
know.
been Mad Max. It might have been Mad Max. Yeah, that was a great movie. You
I
know,
just,
hey, I just
yeah.
got here myself. You know, when the guy lays it down, you know, in the road, and then he's doing the playing
So,
chicken with them. Interceptor. We had the Interceptor cars, and what were the other ones? Patrol and
I don't know. It's been too long. I'm
oh,
old and I don't remember stuff anymore.
it was the Interceptor. Yeah, the Interceptor cars,
I
Patrol,
know Mel Gibson
and
used to be cute. That's all I remember.
you know, we all used to be cute. Okay, so although I look the same, I look the same.
Hey, speak for yourself, buddy. I'm still cute.
Well, you know, it's funny in my yellow
My
page.
cat thinks I'm cute.
In my Yellow Pages ad, I have a picture from 16 years ago now, and I looked at it. You know, and of course, men, when we look at pictures or look in the mirror, we go like, hey, look, yeah. So I look at my picture from 16 years ago. I go, hey, I look just like that. And my secretary, of course, laughs at me. She's like, no, you don't. You know, and she worked before she worked for
I
me.
haven't changed a
I
bit.
haven't changed a bit. I look the same. And before she worked for me, she worked for a friend of mine who also has a picture from like 16, 17. He's my age, in fact. We went to law school together. And he says the same thing. And she laughs at him, too. And I say, no, he looks the
Laura says,
same.
sounds like everyone in Portland. She's probably right. Yeah, probably when I'm working, I do look like somebody from Portland because, you know, with all the crazy colors and.
Yeah, you look like from some
Yeah.
leftist, I guess. So,
I
wait, hold it.
get
You're
a
the
little
troll.
extreme
You're the
looking.
troll. You're the secret troll. You're the one who calls in on that unknown person phone number all the time. And I say, we don't take block
Me? Yeah,
calls.
I have a.
I mean, I should
No,
just turn
if
the
it
zombie on
hasn't,
right
I have
now.
so many jobs.
I'm just going to give you the zombie right now. Wait, hold it.
I could be trolling myself at this point. I wouldn't even
Wait,
know
hold on. We're going to still be on, but wait, watch. Hold on. The
Okay.
zombie.
Okay. Are you there, Laura? Service says it is Mad Max. You were right.
Mad Max. There you go.
Or I was right. One of us was right.
But yeah, I had to put the zombie up real quick there. So yep, there's a zombie. It's coming on now on the delay feed. So.
Oh yeah, there he is. There's my buddy. You know, that's the 88th Democrat to throw his hat in the ring.
You know,
The
I
zombie.
saw
I'll vote
that
for the zombie.
Bill de Blasio today. Oh my God!
Yeah.
It's like I couldn't believe it. I mean,
Yeah.
where does he think he's going to get
coming
votes
for
from?
supersized drinks. He wants to make it a federal law.
Yeah.
Get rid of those giant drinks.
No,
because that's the really important issue.
Yeah, those are things we got to watch out for. Yeah, you know. No, I mean, I don't know where he thinks. I mean, nobody. You can tell MSNBC, CNN, they're not in the bag for this guy at all. I mean, the stories are. Tucker covered it a little bit today, Tucker Carlson, and you could show like their response was.
Well, Tucker, sure, he's not stupid though, but I figure even the in the bag for the leftist side of the media, which is like 90% of them, I figure at this point even they're going, oh, we're obligated to report yet another Democrat.
Well, yeah, but they didn't give him good coverage. They didn't give him good coverage.
Yeah. They're done already. They're like, let's just get this one over with. We're going to take an L no matter what.
Well, no, I think they're pretty optimistic. I think they're pretty optimistic. I think they're waiting for.
That's true.
I think they're kind of waiting for an October surprise in reverse. You know, they're waiting that they're betting on Trump's going to implode somehow. He's going to step on one too many rakes, going to whack him in the head one too many times. Something bad's going to happen, and they'll be right there, you know, ready to pick up the votes. So,
oh wait, I called to be. I didn't call to be agreeable. Hold on. I called to be contentious. Hold on.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Be contentious. What do you want to be contentious about? Wait, hold it.
I want to be contentious.
Wait, hold it. Let me get the zombie ready. Let me get the
you're
zombie
not ready?
I want to get the zombie ready. So when you get contentious like this, I'll put the zombie on.
Come on.
No, go ahead. What do you got? What do you got? Go ahead.
Don't be censorious on Carl's opinion.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Go ahead. What do you got?
I was thinking, yeah, you were going on a tangent at the end of that discussion after I made a couple comments. I think you were assuming I was saying that I
didn't
was
even
okay
see the
with the
comments.
Chinese.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay,
Don't accuse me of stuff. No, I'm only kidding.
I think you were assuming that we would be okay with the Chinese government, cracking down on their Muslim population. I'm surprised there are that many. First of all, the
whole bunch. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, wow, 1 million?
Yeah.
Dang. But yeah, that was amazing. But what I was saying is, I was saying in the chat, I'm torn because, what you're talking about are two different authoritarian, ideologies clashing.
Right.
And Islam is more than just, a set of beliefs and people, religious people being persecuted by an authoritarian communistic rule, of course, but they've already pretty much wiped out their Christian population, and nobody gave a damn in America about that either, except for people like me who read, Christian news, the Voice of the Martyrs, etc.
Right.
But you didn't hear the presidents talking about any of that.
No.
So, but now they're cracking down on the Muslims in the same way. It's like, well, okay, first they came for the Christians and nobody said anything, and now they're coming for the Muslims. So it's like,
right. Yeah, I mean, you could actually use that saying in real time. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the saying come to life. But, but the difference is, the unique aspect of Islam is that it's still, and it's never left the medieval phase of when it becomes popular and that many people. I don't doubt when they say there were violent activities. I think that.
No, I don't doubt that at all. In fact, I know there were. I remember, right before the Olympics, they had some terrorist actions. I mean, even assuming the Chinese didn't just fake it, like a Gulf of Tonkin kind of thing. No, assuming they were telling the truth. No, these people want to break away from China. They want to have a Sharia law. They want to have their own state. No, they want this. They want they're separatists. Granted, but kind of like the English with the South Africans, the Boers. The Boer War. Same thing. It's not like one authoritarian outfit against another. It's one authoritarian outfit, the communists, against people who disagree with them. Like you said, first with the Christians. They saw the Christians as a threat, and they, probably are a threat to their way of life. Christianity is definitely a threat to communism, Marxism, dictatorships, authoritarianism. I mean, that's just the opposite of Christianity. Then Islam is a threat to them. But I mean, anybody's a threat to them, and they figure they can get away with it with the Muslims. Why? I don't know. And you don't hear people on the left in this country yelling and screaming about it, which
I think you were right. It's because Trump is the enemy. Therefore, they're not going to say anything about their current favorite so-called minority, the Muslims, which. I don't know how in any kind of math that makes any sense, but nevertheless, we're going to pretend and call them a minority. Well, they're the minority as far as their population in China. Nobody seems to care. But
my concern is, I like the idea of calling this shit out wherever it is. Nobody gets a pass.
Yeah. And on principle, as the person who obviously disagrees with the I can't talk tonight, authoritarian regime of communist China, any kind of what is the result of that kind of regime? Well, people get disappeared, people get thrown in concentration camps, all kinds of inhumane and unjust and atrocious behaviors occur, and we're against all that. On the other hand, where I'm torn is that if those 1 million Islamists in that country became 20 million Islamists in that country, and they gained a foothold of power, they'd be doing the same exact thing right back to the communists.
Oh, yeah.
So,
or to anybody
I'm
else.
saying they're no
Right.
better.
No. Right. No, I mean,
I'm saying it's a bear fighting another bear, or a bear fighting a wolf. I don't know, but it's
it's more like
two of the same kind
like
of. They're
right
both
now
predators. They're both predators.
right now it's
So
like
I'm torn.
10 bears against 1 bear. But you're right. If it was
Exactly.
10 bears
it's just a
on
matter
their
of
side,
quantity, but that doesn't make it right in principle as far as the principle of what the two ideologies themselves are.
right? I mean,
So then you're dealing with.
I mean, look. I mean, in this country, I mean, like
is
United
my
States,
morality based on quantity?
right? I mean, in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
we don't do a bad job at it. The Muslim population, they do Sharia law. I mean, right now. I mean, if you're a businessman in Dearborn and you're a Muslim and you have a dispute with another Muslim, you better not be going to civil court, Dearborn Municipal Court.
Right.
You better be talking to someone in the mosque. And if you do take somebody to civil court, you're going to be persona non grata real fast. So
sorry to interrupt, but that exact point is why Islam, as they exist, a big part of their whole strategy for taking over nations, as they themselves have said, is to do exactly that: infiltrate and just keep growing their population from within. And just, it's not so much about amassing at the borders and having a military coup. It's about, infiltration and eventually, taking over. So is China wrong when they actually are facing the real tactic of Islam as far as taking over? Are they wrong when they say, yeah, this is an ideology? They're using the tactic that they themselves said they would use, infiltration.
Yeah.
I can't fault somebody for being practical and logical on that side of it.
Well, I think these people are already living there, though. I mean, I think they've been there for centuries.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the ethnic situation or how that
I don't know enough about it either. Yeah. But I think they've been there for a long time.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that they did, and their population just grew, because I know that a lot of what we know of China has to do with more the urban rules and their one-child policies and all that stuff. That's mostly in the cities, but the rural areas of China are can be pretty spread out and remote.
Yeah.
And the way that people live their life in those areas is really more of a third world country situation. So
like you got your farmers and your typical bad scenes of the little boats going up and down the rivers and shit. Yeah.
So it's entirely possible that the soul-crushing regime of communism isn't really messing around much with the rural population, so they're allowed to live out whatever their faith is in those areas. And then one day they woke up and figured out, oh, wait a minute, we got 1 million of them now. So maybe that's what happened.
That could be. Could be.
But then again, just on a pragmatic level, the understanding of the geopolitical aspirations of Islam and how they do things. It's the reality is that is how they take over countries. So do you ignore that if you're a country, no matter what your particular style of government is? And I don't know.
I don't know either.
Are we supposed to see Michigan to become the next Palestine? Is that what's going to happen in America? Is that?
Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Is that okay? Just because we don't want to offend people? I mean, I don't see that that's okay.
You bring up some good points.
As we do with China, we disagree with China, but the fact is they're a nation of laws. We recognize them as a nation with laws, and if you're creating laws inside of China that are contrary to the laws of China, and if they practice Sharia, I'm sure they do, then it's within their right as a nation to enforce their laws. So
No,
On this one, I'm actually
you brought
siding
up
with
some.
the commies, I guess. And now I'm talking myself into it.
You brought up some good points for me to think about. Now I have to think about it. Now I got to research the hell out of this. Thank you.
Mm.
I don't have enough to do already.
It's
I'm not
called
busy
having
enough.
an open mind and having a big mouth.
No, it's good having an open mind. But now you gave me a lot to think about, so now I got to go read up on it and stuff and find out. And we'll have to do like a part 2 on this. And I'll shoot you some emails on some of the research I do. So no, this would be good.
I appreciate it.
This would be a good discussion. Yeah.
It's an interesting dilemma. It's like Schrodinger's dictatorship. Is it or isn't it? I don't know.
Right.
But it's who do you side with? On principle, neither. But yeah, and
no, the thing that amazes me is how the left in this country is so quiet about it. I mean, you hear, Talib and Omar and AOC talking shit about us and Israel, but you don't hear any of them talking about China. I mean, they're all quiet.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're twisted, and if the ones that have heard about it are probably twisted and nuts about not knowing what to do. But keep in mind, the Democrats are like Homer Simpson. And there's a famous Homer Simpson quote. He says, "I don't know what I think until the TV tells me to." So they're waiting for somebody to tell them what to think on it. So when they get permission, if they get permission to be upset about it, then they'll all come out at the same time and say the same things, and then we'll have another montage quote on the Rush Limbaugh show.
Well, the only thing I'm thinking, and I'm kind of thinking out loud right now, is like the three of them are globalists. They're supported by the biggest globalists in the world, douchebag's friend, George Soros, right? And obviously, George Soros is pro-China, pro-global, globalization. Anybody that's bad, for America, that wants to hurt America. That's where they get their money from. That's who supports them. So my guess is that, like, the Justice Democrats, the people who found these three idiots, aren't giving them any talking points on China and the Muslim population. So they're not talking about it. They're purposely not giving them anything to say, and nobody's asking them because the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about it, so they're not getting asked any of these tough questions. But
and the silence is very obvious. It's very deafening. You can hear it very clearly.
Yeah, it's weird.
So your masters haven't told you what to say.
Right, because they don't want them to say. They don't want them to say anything. They don't want them to bring it out. Doesn't fit their narrative.
Isn't it nice to have your own brain as a conservative and independent thinker, that you can say what you think without having to wait for somebody else to tell you what to say?
True. But if somebody handed me $10 million...
Damn, it's good to be an American.
Yeah, but if somebody handed me $10 million or $25 million and said, Carl, we want you to change your YouTube channel and talk about this, I'd be talking about this. Sorry. $25 million?
Well, at least you're honest.
25 million? Hey, let me tell you, I throw all of you under the bus. Okay,
are you telling
wear my
me you
Trump
are
hat.
An opinion whore?
I'd wear my Trump hat upside down. Boom. George Soros knocks on the door and says, Carl, we've been watching your site. We think you're a threat. And I'd be like, yeah, you do.
Okay.
And they'd be like, well, here's a check for 25 million. All we want you to do is say exactly the opposite of what you've been saying for the last 3 months. And I'd be like,
So now it's 25 million. You increased it to make yourself sound better.
Well, no. What I did was that's how much Soros gave Vice News. He gave him 25 million.
Oh,
yeah.
So that's where I got that. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Vice News was on the way out.
I thought it was like more than that.
No.
Oh, I thought it was more than that.
Was it? Well, I don't know. Maybe I should get a raise.
Maybe I'm confused. I remember.
Was it 250?
Maybe I'm confusing it with another story. Yeah, I remember something was 250. So I'm
so
trying
do I now.
to hear where I'm trying to piece it together in my head where I heard 250.
Okay, so George Soros shows up on my door and hands me a check for 250 million and says, "Carl, say the opposite of everything you said for the last 3 months." I'd be like, "Well,
you are globalist. You are socialist."
Right, and I'd be like, "No, you don't have to brainwash me. No, you don't have to brainwash me. Just hand me the check." Okay, I'm the same guy. No problem. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, you know, and then I can rationalize it. You
So,
know,
so is that what happened to Ann Coulter, do you think?
now we know. Somebody gave her a check.
Ah, ah,
Here's a check, and she's
somebody.
like, yeah,
If
somebody.
somebody
Well,
came
you
here
know,
and said, listen, Ann, the bloom is off the rose, honey, and
yeah, she
you're
turned out
going
to
to
be
need
kind of
a
weird.
retirement package, and we're going to offer you one. You need to start hating Trump.
Right, right. Well, at first, I thought she was kind of like playing in the backfield, like she was trying to like daring him to do other things. But then it was
Devil's
like
advocate.
some of the things she was
Yeah. Yeah.
daring him to do were like get him impeached and probably convicted in the Senate. I mean, because everybody would be like, "Yeah, that's kind of crazy. You can't do this shit." Oh, just send the military down and start building the wall and put armed troops on the border, and let them use force.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, well, I mean, let me tell you, if he started doing that, a lot of us would be like, okay, he's lost it. Okay, there's something wrong. Something wrong here. So, but the advice she was giving him was like crazy wacko shit. It's like, no, we have a
And she's an
constitution.
attorney. I
Yeah.
don't think she's licensed anymore, but she was she did pass the bar, right? I mean,
Well, yeah. I mean, read the damn Constitution. I mean, look, I've said it before on this site.
uh-huh.
The Constitution was designed intentionally so things would change slowly. They wanted change slowly, and they wrote it up like that because they said, okay, after we're dead, we got to make sure things don't get crazy. Even though they were kind of I mean, they were radicals. They were crazy. I mean, they took up arms and shot, British soldiers. I mean, that's who our founders were. I mean, they shot like, you know, they're soldiers. They were part of the British Empire. So I mean, but they said, a little radicalism is good, but not too much. And they were afraid after they were gone, some people might get in power and be crazier than they were and do the wrong thing. So they wrote up a system that moves slowly. And so if you want things to change quickly, you're in the wrong country. Okay? Tough shit. I mean, look,
Yeah, yeah.
the radicals from the
Well,
60s
yeah, but
realized that.
she's irrational now at this point.
Yeah,
The
now
whole
she's trying to
building the
get
wall
attention.
is
Yeah, she's all over the place.
yeah. But people have been sending her pictures on her social media of the wall being built in sections where it's being built now, and that's not good enough for her. It's like, and I remember just today literally thinking, because I have some construction in my background, thinking, woman, how long do you think it would be an instantaneous process to build hundreds of miles of wall? I mean, do you really? Yeah. How long do you think it takes to make a major construction project happen?
Right.
So yeah, so I'm just saying there's no rational kind of. It's like nobody's home. I don't know what's going on with her.
Yeah.
Something I don't know.
Well, I'm glad
Maybe
I'm glad
stress.
she
I
wasn't
don't know.
listening to him. And now we got the president getting into a fight with John Bolton. Or was it Josh Bolton? John Bolton. And Bolton better be careful because who's going to win that fight. It's going to be President Trump. He's going to fire his ass if he's not too careful.
Yeah, I think Trump's his style, his management style, if you will, seems to be to cast a wide net and then throw away the ones he doesn't like after he's caught them.
Right.
And he seems to do that. He's really good at knowing who to fire, but he isn't so good at hiring.
Well,
because he hires idiots.
Well, he's in D.C.
So
I mean, the labor pool is like
he's surrounded
really
by
bad.
idiots. Yes, I got yeah.
Yeah. But I mean,
So
yeah.
yeah, I got that. Yeah. Well, he does. Bless him. He knows how to fire the right people. So that's
true.
good.
Yeah.
So he as a good manager should, you recognize your weaknesses as well as your strengths. His weaknesses are somebody says something nice to him, he hires them. So that's a weakness. But at least he accommodates for it on the back end by firing them promptly when they do something stupid. So I appreciate that strength in him. Not only his ability to fire, but his ability to recognize that, he has to.
Well, it looks like the debate going on, the way I'm trying to read it, it looks like you got Kushner on one side saying, well, let's not go to war. And you got Bolton on the other side. Of course, he's been wanting to go to war with anybody for the last 30 years. Anybody's followed his career. And Trump's okay with having that hawk there because it scares people. You know what I'm saying? Which you want to scare people a little bit. But it seemed like the rhetoric was getting a little out of control, and Trump, it kind of, I think it worried Trump a little bit.
I didn't hear the Bolton thing. You talking about Venezuela?
No, Iran.
Or Iran? Okay, Iran. Okay,
The Saudi Arabian oil takers and all that stuff.
Okay, I was going to guess Iran next. We had the two senators from Florida trying to advise him on opposite sides of the spectrum as far as military action in Venezuela also last week. So he's got those two birds on, well, the devil and the angel on his shoulder, per se.
Well,
but
I tell you what, stay on. Wait, hold on. Hold on. Stay on. I'm going to pull up a story on
Iran.
Yeah. And then we'll read it.
I don't know.
Stay on the phone. Stay on the phone. Stay on the phone.
Whatever.
What do you mean, whatever?
Okay.
What do you mean, whatever? What's that, whatever? What are you, 16? What are you, 16? Whatever.
Whatever.
Okay, anyway, here. I'm going to read the story because you got a 17-second delay for seeing it. Okay. Democrats warn Trump against military force as Iran tensions escalate. President Trump said Thursday that he hopes to avoid war with Iran, as Democrats warned that the administration lacks congressional approval for military force, and tensions continue to rise in the region over President's pressure campaign against Iran. Saudi Arabia took a fresh shot at its longtime regional rival by blaming Tehran for a drone attack that knocked out a key oil pipeline. A newspaper close to the palace called on the U.S. to carry out surgical strikes on Iran, quote unquote. A string of U.S. moves in recent days, including a leaked proposal for 120,000 troop deployment in the region and the withdrawal of some U.S. diplomatic personnel from neighboring Iraq, has sent fears of military clash soaring and left the Trump White House scrambling to persuade lawmakers and allies of the strength of its intelligence. Let me see. I'm going to get to the part with... Okay, and then he was asked a question, was asked by a reporter whether the U.S. would be going to war with Iran. He goes, the president said, I hope not. So let's see here. President told Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan that he does not want to go to war with Iran. The New York Times reported, characterizing it as a message from Trump to his own hawkish aides, that U.S. economic pressure campaign against Iran's Islamic regime must not escalate into armed conflict. Let's see. Let's see if we get to the part here. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Trump has denied infighting in the White House over Iran policy amid reports that he has been uneasy with the push by hawkish aides such as National Security Advisor John Bolton and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo for a more confrontational approach with Iran. Trump has expressed interest in direct talks with Iran and predicted that more stringent sanctions, in particular on vital oil imports, will force Iranians to the bargaining table. But Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Jadideh, who was meeting with Japanese officials in Tokyo, told reporters, no, there is no possibility for negotiations. Let's see. Chris Murphy, Supreme Leader.
Okay, so this is John Bolton, who's now, he's just on the cabinet or something. He's
National
not
Security Advisor.
He used to be the UN whatever,
right.
UN ambassador.
He was a recess appointment during George Bush's.
Okay, remember last year he tried to get Trump to do the same thing against North Korea.
Right.
You remember that?
Yes.
Same guy.
No, he wants to go to war with everybody.
What is that?
Yeah, he's one of those guys.
Yeah, he wanted. I remember the exact phrase: surgical strikes against North Korea. He said the same thing in last year, 2018.
Right.
Same phrase.
No, it's not.
Okay, I'm sorry?
No. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so my question is this. Is this a psyop? Having John Bolton be the guy to go out there and say this crap, and then in order to shake up the international community who's misbehaving, to say, oh, he might take this guy's advice. We better back off our stupidity for a little while.
No, yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. I think it might be one of those things where like he likes having this, crazy attack dog running around. I think
Yeah,
I think Trump
yeah.
just kind of got worried
Now,
when.
if Trump looks measured, he looks like the calm one. But
Oh,
then the
yeah.
possibility is he could take his advice. So then the bad players are going to go, oh, I hope he doesn't take that guy's advice. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? This could
Well,
all be like some people claim, 3D, 4D chess.
well, like I think
I mean, I
somebody
would
was
hope so. I would hope
yeah.
so that they're not just stupid. I mean, that just disheartens me if it's just stupidity on the part of this John Bolton guy, just being a war hawk. I can't believe it's that simplistic. It just doesn't seem that a guy on that level would be that pinheaded.
Oh wait, hold it. Jervis Rhodes,
You
laughing out loud, da 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 da, when I was reading through the story, like da 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 da.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
no, I think
Spin,
I
spin, 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 spin.
yeah I think part of me was thinking like, okay, here is me thinking out loud again. Okay, he's got like
Okay,
guys, real hawkish. Then he's got
go
other
for it,
guys who
Mr.
aren't.
Carl. Go for it.
Yeah, then he's got like it's like the team of rivals, right? You got a team of rivals in the White House. You got these guys over here
Sure.
arguing with these guys over here, and he kind of sits back.
Yeah.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt did it. Lincoln did it. Roosevelt did it. Was a master of it, total master of this. And generally, the press says, like somebody commented, it might have been Gutfield. Normally, the press loves that. They always applaud it. Oh, good job. But with Trump, they say, oh, disarray. White House in disarray. No, it's not in disarray. You got people with differing opinions. Strong, these are all alpha male type people, and they have their opinion, and they're going to like try to force it to get the president to follow their advice. But then you got other, people, who disagree. So that's okay. It's okay to have a
Mhm.
healthy debate. Now, the only thing I think Trump got a little worried because somebody came to him and said, "Hey, with the close proximity of all these forces next to each other, an accident could happen. Somebody gets a trigger, hairy trigger finger, not a hairy, shaky trigger finger,
Itchy.
right? Itchy. Thank you, itchy trigger finger.
Harry.
Couldn't think of the word. Hairy. Well, I got hair in my hands, so
So
there you go.
I'm an artist. I visualize everything everybody says, so the images dancing in my head are hilarious right now.
Oh god, terrible. But anyway, so right, and then somebody fires off a round, one missile hits a ship. Like we had an accident. NATO they were doing some maneuvers, and somebody on one of our aircraft carriers actually fired a freaking missile. I think it hit like I don't want to say it was a Turkish ship or something. Killed like 20 guys on the ship. It was an accident. But I think somebody came to Trump and said, hey, you got all these ships and planes flying in the area. Somebody gets a little nervous. Some pilot, some guy on a ship, one pilot. That's all it takes. And so he kind of maybe wanted to ratchet back a little bit. Which I'm okay with him on that foreign policy because he's a big anti-war guy. I mean, he was willing to stick his
Mhm.
neck out to get egg on his face to go to North Korea. To go to the first meeting was in Singapore to go there and meet with Kim, knowing the whole thing might collapse the first meeting, and he looked like an idiot. And he knew the press was just waiting for him to look stupid.
Well,
And he still
yeah.
did
Well,
it. He
see,
still
this
risked.
is why I would be very disappointed if Trump actually took the advice of this apparent war hawk,
Yeah,
Bolton. But I just can't. I can't accept that it's just that simplistic. I just can't accept it because exactly what you just said. He is very anti-war. He hasn't started any conflagrations or
no,
whatever
he's been
that
willing
word
to
is.
risk his own neck and look stupid by trying to stop him and pull us out of Afghanistan, Syria, et cetera.
Exactly. And he seems to be keeping on his principle with regard to that. So I just feel like John Bolton is like the saber that Trump can rattle at people without actually doing anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he's like, okay, look, well, Nixon did the same thing. I mean, well, Kissinger did the same thing. Nixon, Kissinger. Like Kissinger would,
Mm-hmm.
like Nixon would like blow the hell out of Hanoi, and Kissinger should be over there in Paris talking to the North Vietnamese, saying, "Hey, like when the deal kind of got stalled, and then Nixon goes, well, okay, we'll uninstall the negotiations, and then they bombed the shit out of Hanoi."
Uh-huh.
And Kissinger would say, "Hey,
And then
this guy's
yeah,
crazy. We better get something done because I don't know what this
yeah.
guy's capable of doing. He's got nuts."
You guys
Kissinger
better
would actually tell
straighten
his
out
people
before
that.
these guys on my cabinet, there's a coup and they take over and do these horrible.
Right.
That's hilarious.
Some guy,
But the other fun part of that, if you think about it, if that's how it's really playing out, is that he's also then simultaneously playing the press like a fiddle, using them to spread this propaganda that, the Iranians and the Venezuelans and whoever else he needs, the North Koreans back last year, need to hear these reports.
Yeah.
And, our stupid press is doing their job, doing his job.
Right.
And think about it. This is like I said, I remember the phrase, surgical strikes, John Bolton, North Korea, 2018. I remember this, and I'm thinking, so they reported that again this year, and nobody said, hey, wait a minute. Nobody said that in the press, in our press.
Nope.
Just me here now.
Right.
So, the heck?
Mm-hmm.
I'm impressed with the stupidity. Yet people are still able to walk outside and not drown.
Yeah,
in the rain.
like don't look up when it's raining.
Oh my goodness, it's amazing. It's just amazing. And also, it's also interesting how they marvel at the concept of a leader having people with differing opinions in their cabinet. I guess they're just so weak-minded and egocentric that they just can only conceive of a cabinet full of lick-spittle, sycophants, like would be, Obama's cabinet, I imagine.
Yeah.
So
no, it's funny because he doesn't.
Comprehend
his cabinet is just
an
the opposite.
alpha male in a room full of alpha males.
Right. No,
yeah.
I mean, like Kushner. Kushner's not some ass kisser. Neither is Miller. I mean, if you look at the four guys that talk to him the most, Bolton, Pompeo, Kushner, and Miller. These are all alpha male guys. Okay, Kushner's worth more money than Trump is worth. Okay, between his family and everything else. But he actually brings these ideas to Trump and says, "Hey, let's do this." The meeting with meeting with Saudi Arabia, the first Middle East meeting he did, that was Kushner's doing, and he caught a lot of shit from who's that guy he fired, the Secretary of State? I already forgot his name. The guy who ran Exxon. He was against it, and
oh God, yeah, that guy,
yeah.
Everybody thought he was great, and then he was horrible.
Right.
I remember that. And then the other guy, the news guy, everybody thought was great, and then he was horrible. And I can't remember any of their names anymore because I'm old and names are the first to go. But I know what you're talking about.
Right. So, I mean, these are all alpha males, and they all go at it with each other. And then, and he likes that. And he gets,
and
they debate it out.
Media all scared.
Yeah, they debate it out. He listens. Then he makes a call.
Yeah.
And they make it sound like they're all like ass kissers. None of these people are ass kissers. Okay? Bolton's not an ass kisser. Pompeo's not an ass kisser. Miller's not an ass kisser. Kushner is sure shit not an ass kisser. He's a F you. I'm going to take your daughter. We're going to go live on an island somewhere with my gazillions of dollars.
Yeah.
Well,
the guy's worth gazillions. Jervis said in the chat, just in your chat here, he says Bolton is a warmonger. I don't know, Jervis. I don't know that. I don't know. I think that could be the narrative.
Well, no. Bolton's been wanting war with everybody for decades. No, decades. I mean, he wanted war with Iraq. Yeah. No. He pushed.
So do you think Trump is just using this guy, this hawkish guy, to be scary? To be the boogeyman?
No. Look. Just because Bolton is a war hawk doesn't mean he's wrong all the time. Okay, some people you have to go to war with.
Right.
Okay, and some people are bad people.
Okay.
And maybe someday we might have to go to war with Iran. Okay, and that's when you want someone like him running around. and maybe we have to go to war with somebody else. But, you know,
Okay.
you don't have to, like, take his advice today,
but he seems to be always in fourth gear. The man is never on idle, you know.
No, but that's okay. That's okay. He could be like that. Doesn't mean yet. Look, it's the guy we got at top who makes the call. You know, he's like you said, he's real rational. He's been very rational. Foreign policy, domestic policy. So he can have someone like Bolton running around talking all kinds of shit. It's not going to. It's not going to change his mind if he wants to do something. Bolton
Which is
go,
why I'm thinking of it from the political angle, I guess, because from the moral angle, sometimes you do have to go for it. But I'm thinking from the political angle, Trump would be wise, as you know, from the purely political angle, to go into the next election cycle as being the only president in a lot of people's recent memories and lifetimes that hasn't started some war somewhere as an American president. And I know they're not always called wars,
right?
Because of the whole Executive War Powers Act,
well,
whatever it's
he
called.
did bomb Syria, so he might.
But they're wars.
I mean, he did bomb Syria, so I mean he might have already blown it.
Do the bombing of
Yeah. Well,
but
almost close call.
Send troops, did he? I mean, I don't know.
We had troops in Syria. He tried getting them out, but
we have troops in Syria, but they're not out of Syria.
No,
I mean he didn't put them there.
Well,
he did send those carriers. He sent carriers to the.
No, there's ground troops there. There's ground troops. Yeah.
Yeah, the carriers. The ones in the other Iran. What's that body of water?
Persian Gulf.
The Gulf.
Yeah.
Persian Gulf. Thank you.
Yeah.
There are troops on those carriers for sure.
Well, one of those carriers. Here's the deal. Yeah. If one of those carriers gets hit, and gets hit badly, that's always been a fear.
Yeah.
With our carriers, is that they are vulnerable. They get hit. There's 5,000 men and women on board one of those ships. 5,000. I mean, it's a lot of people. It carries a lot of fuel and munitions. A lot of, when carriers go on fire, a lot of people die. It's still a ship. It's not easy
I like how Jervis put it. He called it good cop, bad cop. I like that.
Yeah, when you're below decks, there are people below decks that have to work below decks. It's not like you got these big open hallways and stairwells and escalators. I mean, it's tight. Even though it's a big ship, it's tight because space is, at a premium. So you're not necessarily getting out of there real fast, So, you could lose 1,000 people kind of quick.
I think, though, and again, talking just purely from the political, not the moral side of the question, just from the political maneuvering side of the question, if indeed our carrier was attacked in open water, then he would have,
reason, right? And Jervis just
tremendous
wrote that.
Amount.
Yeah, Jervis just wrote that. Yeah, that would be all-out war then, right? And I agree, because then he would.
Well, he would have support. He would have support from the majority of the people of America, so it wouldn't be a political issue as much. But it
would still be 1,000 dead people. Together. It would still be 1,000 dead Americans.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just saying, as far as getting involved in militarily at that point, it would be, of course we are, and people would agree. So
but here's the point,
political suicide.
Here's the point, though. What do we get out of it? I mean, Iran is not Iraq.
Oh, yeah.
These people aren't going to hold up their hands and surrender. Not going to be 80,000 troops surrendering to us without firing a shot. These people are going to fight. And it's a big country, a lot bigger than Iraq. It's huge compared to Iraq. And these people are fanatics, and they have good ground personnel and troops and stuff. I mean, we could have air superiority pretty quick. That's not a problem, but they still have a lot of munitions and things that could do us a lot of harm and kill a lot of our people. And we lose a lot of people over there. And then And then you can't hold that country. You can't hold it. It's not going to happen.
Right.
And all the dissidents, the same things like in Iraq. Oh, the dissidents will take over. Yeah, we saw how well that worked out in Iraq. People couldn't agree on shit.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was a
Well,
disaster.
yes, I mean, in practical reality, what good would a quote war be? But I think
How
that
do
a
we benefit?
retaliatory
How do we
attack
benefit?
would be unavoidable.
Yeah, no, I
Unavoidable.
agree, but there's no benefit to us. What are we gonna we're gonna grab the oil fields
Exactly.
and then do
It
what
would be
with it?
nothing but to say, hey, you messed with us, and we can't let you get away with it because we can't lose our street cred. That would be all that we would get out of
And
it.
then
That would be it.
say we took over the fields. Well, the Chinese have a lot of contracts with the Iranians, so we end up what selling oil to the Chinese. I mean, and then you talk about guerrilla warfare. I mean,
And the Russians, right?
well, yeah, and plus that
Coincidentally,
green lights the Russians and the Chinese to do what they want to do in their parts of the world. It's like, well, okay, you went into Iran, so
right.
we can go over here. We can do this. We can do
Well,
that.
that's what I was thinking. If we did, keeping in mind it would be probably under the duress of they did something to our, like you said, attacked our carrier.
Right.
But a retaliatory strike would then, yeah, there would be some Russian action in other parts of the world, just as a matter of just to be pissy
the
about it, because
retaliatory
Russia's
strike.
got Iran's back, and we
Right.
all know it.
Yeah, I mean, the retaliatory strike would probably be you go in, take out their air force, take out what navy they have, take out your anti-ship missiles as much as you can, anti-air missiles,
Yeah.
batteries, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Just kind of
And
decimate
any
their
place we
military.
think that they've got their nuclear stuff, and
Then that'd give an excuse to try to hit those sites and stuff. Yeah, so I mean, you'd pretty much take them down pretty good, and then the Russians, the Chinese have to come and rebuild up their military and stuff, and for free or for
and
free
so
oil.
the first thing I thought was the Russians would then mess with us in other theaters because they'd be pissy about it.
Well, no, not just pissy, not just pissy. They would say, "Hey, don't bitch about what we're doing. Look what you just did. Where's your moral high ground? Where's your moral authority to tell us we can't do this?"
They would be more directly involved in Venezuela than they already are now. It's sort of black ops ish, and it would be more like, "Hey, we're moving in, we're taking over, and you have nothing to say about it. What are you gonna do about it? Come at me, bro."
Right.
So it could be a chain reaction. I mean, isn't that how World War One kind of happened? It was sort of a chain reaction of bullshit like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, you got three big guys in the block: Russia, China, United States. The point is, we don't ever want any of us to be in like direct conflict with each other. Okay, you don't want that. Okay, first of all, it's stupid. Okay, I mean, if you don't think it's stupid, ask the Europeans. Okay, World War I, World War II. What happened to their empires?
What
happened to their
influence? Our interests? What are our American interests in
keeping the Strait of Hormuz free? Keeping the Strait of Hormuz free. Not allowing the Iranians to go into Lebanon, Syria, Yemen.
Because at this point, can't we get off the teat of the Arab oil? I mean, aren't we oil independent yet?
Well, we're okay. Somebody explained it to me years ago, and I still don't really understand it. Okay, but world oil prices are based on like world oil supply. So it's not like, well, we produce our oil here so we can set the price and it's cheaper. Well, first of all, the oil we produce here is expensive. Okay, in fact, we can't even produce oil here unless the price per barrel goes up over $40 per barrel, because what we pay our workers here. If oil's not at over $40 per barrel, we're not drilling for oil. We're not producing oil. We're not doing anything because you can't afford it. Okay, in Saudi Arabia they pay their people $5 a day. Our guys get paid $30-40 an hour. So that's why I've always said, it's not bad if we're paying more at the pump because it allows us to have a national oil industry. Okay. And for national security reasons, not just economic. Because you can't just start one up in the middle of a war. You need to have the infrastructure, the supply chains, rail lines, pipelines, all that stuff. And all that stuff costs a lot of money. And they're only going to build those things if there's a profit. So even though we produce a lot of oil and natural gas, the prices are dependent on the world oil supply. And so if the supply goes down, the prices go up, it hurts everybody. We get more jobs, but you want to balance with jobs and price because high oil prices cut down on supply in this country for other goods, manufactured goods, drives the price up, which actually drives down demand, and then supply will go down, jobs go down, that kind of thing. So it's a tough
Mm,
balancing act, you know.
I don't know. It sounds like some opposite of the way we understand economics to work in other industries. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
No,
I think
we
there's a lot
need.
of speculation about it.
Well, no, we need Iranians to be pumping oil. We need Saudis, UAE, everybody else to keep the supply constant. India is grabbing a lot of oil. China, so like China's in Africa right now. You know, they buy a lot of oil
Well, I
from
mean,
Somalia and stuff.
if the if the world supply is lower, wouldn't that increase the cost per barrel? Therefore, the first part of the scenario that you're mentioning, as far as paying our workers, would be taken care of.
Yeah, but
Supply and demand, right?
well, yeah, but again, it's a really weird balancing thing because for people in those states like Texas, Louisiana, then of course North Dakota, South Dakota, those states up there are producing the oil and stuff. It's good for them, but it's bad for the rest of the country. I lived in Houston from 1978 to
Mm-hmm.
1985. In 78, the economy was doing really bad in most of the country. You had a lot of people moving from the Midwest down to the South, down to Texas, like the Yankee invasion, as people
But
in
not
Texas
too
referred.
much inflation.
Right, but in
Mm-hmm.
the way people in Texas described us, because I was coming from New York, we're like Yankees and we're invading your state and shit like that. So the rest of the country sucked. Okay, but those states did really good. Now, here comes 1985. The rest of the country starts doing good because oil prices are low and cost of production goes down, jobs go up, but Texas goes to shit. Okay, so you got to strike a nice balance. So the oil producing states and the non-oil producing states are both doing good at the same time. So it's a real weird number price per barrel you got to find. I think we're a pretty good place right now,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't want to drive the price
I
up too
just
high.
would like us to be unhooked from the world oil production as a market. Like, in other
I
words,
don't think
if
so.
we're just producing for ourselves and not messing with the world market, we don't care what their production costs are or what have you.
Yeah.
We
Well, that
don't.
would be
We
nice.
choose to not participate. Yeah, if we don't participate, we have not just oil, but shale and coal and whatever else. What
Hmm.
does fracking produce? What is that?
Natural
Or,
gas.
or whatever.
Yeah, natural
Natural
gas.
gas. Oh, well, yeah, that's right. Natural gas stuff. Yeah, so we do all that. And if we are indeed self-sufficient in oil, and I don't know if that's the case for sure, it's just something I've recently heard, then, unhook. It's sort of like tariffs, but without tariffs. It's we're unhooking from the world market with regard to oil and oil products or whatever. That'd be
Yeah.
interesting.
No, that'd be a good goal. That'd be a good goal. Yeah, like I said, I don't know where
Because then
we are. I don't know where
we
we
can
are.
deal with that
I don't know
market
what our
fluctuation.
consumption is versus what we produce. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Be probably a good idea to know. Okay, tell you what. I got the
Yeah.
other project. You got this one. I got the Chinese and the Muslims.
You want me to figure out our oil consumption versus production?
Yeah, you got that.
Okay.
That's your project. I'm already doing the other one. Okay.
Okay. I'll put it on a post-it note.
There you go. Just don't throw it away.
Just,
Don't paint
no,
over it.
my post-it notes are electronic. They're on my computer, so.
Oh, that's right. You're all high tech. That's right. I
Paper.
forgot. Yeah. Yeah. I use real post-it notes. I use a lot of them. No, seriously. I
Oh
use
my
them
God,
everywhere.
that's so 1988.
Hey, I'm an '80s guy, babe. That's who I am. I'm an '80s guy. When men were men and women knew it.
And
No
post-it notes were
SJW here.
cool.
Do what?
And post-it notes were cool.
Well, I use them like when I read police reports and stuff. You know, like I tab it
Uh-huh.
and
Sure.
stuff like that.
Sure.
Or
Yeah.
like I
Hard files.
research a
Yeah.
case. I print out cases and stuff, and then I tab the pages where the holdings are that I want the judge to look at and stuff like that. So, yeah, but I constantly use post-it notes.
Yeah. Yeah.
No eye tech here.
So, so So you were on another subject. What was the other subject before we got into the?
Well, let's see. Let me take a look. I got it all up in front of me here. Let me take a look here. Well, we did
Okay.
Iran,
Let's
China.
keep this show rolling forward there, Carl. Let's
Okay,
move.
okay.
Get on
I did Texas and
get on the
sovereignty.
train.
I did Iran,
Okay.
and let's see. Oh, I did. Where's the other one? I thought I had another one. Hold on. Let me get to it. Mm-hmm. Let's see.
There was something I wanted to bring up, and I don't know if you covered it, which was the 18, I believe it is now, states that have either nearly passed or are about to pass state law that insists that anybody on the ballot for president has to have their last 5 years tax returns available to the public.
Right. Yeah.
You covered that?
No. But I've read it.
You haven't covered it?
Not today.
You've read it? Well, I
No.
thought you'd be all over that. That's like a lawyer thing, you know?
Yeah.
I thought that would be of interest. Is it not interesting?
Well, yeah, it is. Well, I mean, look, here's the deal.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so states can pretty much make laws like determining certain requirements for voting and stuff like that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The question is,
Mm-hmm.
can they affect a federal election by, okay, if, say they did this like decades ago and there was nobody not wanting to release their tax returns, then they can say, well, it's
Right.
part of the broad sovereign, like Texas asserting sovereign immunity, part of their sovereignty, to determine who can vote, who can't, and how they can vote and stuff like that. And the whole part of the Civil Rights Act was saying, the Voting Rights Act was, okay, states can't limit who can vote. So the feds passed a statute on that. So the question becomes is, are you targeting a specific candidate? And then would that be a violation of like equal protection laws? Would that be a violation of federal law? And primarily, I believe, equal protection laws, because you're targeting one guy, this guy, Trump. So it's different than just had a blanket law been in place for 30 years, and then some guy shows up and says, okay, I know what the law says. I don't want to do it. I don't care. Don't put me on the ballot. So I think the discussion was that
your take on it is that the argument is that it's punitive and therefore it is not valid and can be
what she
down
said.
Because of that?
Yeah, what she said. Yeah, you. Yeah. No, actually, I think when I read the articles on it, and I think it leaned towards right. If it is punitive, if it's designed to single out a candidate to almost discriminate against a certain candidate, then it probably wouldn't hold up the constitutional muster under an equal protection of the laws argument. But I didn't really. I read it, and I didn't find it really that interesting, so I didn't deep dive into it.
Okay, so have you heard of the Office of Legislative Services?
No.
Okay. I'm sorry?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, what is it?
Oh, okay. Okay, well, not entirely sure what it is, but apparently it's some kind of regulatory body that representatives go to in order to get opinion on legislation. I guess maybe before they, like a representative has a bill written that they want to submit for voting, and they pass it through this Office of Legislative Services for their
it's in the
opinion.
the House or the Senate? Okay.
And to determine whether it will pass, scrutiny of, whatever court it might be brought before for challenge. And then back in 2017, the Democrats tried these bills. They started doing this already. You must reveal your tax returns. It's because of Trump already, of course, because it's only 2017. And New Jersey ran their bill in front of this Office of Legislative Services, and they returned a letter, a 7-page. It is a nonpartisan, apparently, office. Supposedly, they returned a 7-page letter, March 17th, 2017, and the paragraph that refers that's most important refers to why they think it's unconstitutional. So the argument isn't punitive, but the argument is it is the opinion of the Legislative Council that the qualification clauses in Articles 1 and 2, this is United States Constitution.
This was
in the First
Colorado?
and 14th Amendment.
Colorado, you said?
This is New Jersey. This one's New Jersey. They tried this in 2017. Same thing, though, tax returns. Mm-hmm. Constrain the legislature's power to restrict candidates from federal elective offices from appearing on the ballot. This is the part that's bolded. Although the legislature may regulate the, quote, times, places, and manner of holding elections, unquote, the legislature cannot add qualifications for federal office beyond those set forth in the Constitution. And that was the bolded part. Moreover, the legislature must apply any ballot access restriction it implements in an even-handed manner to avoid violating the voters' freedom of choice and association guaranteed by the First and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution. So basically, they're saying it violates like 4 different tenets of the Constitution in that one paragraph.
Oh, okay. Let's see. So, yeah, I just pulled up an article from, what year is this? 2019. Let's see. Right, they're talking about last time they explored it was back in 2017, like you were just saying. And you can read it here. All else can't tell the legislature what to do or pass judgment, whether the bill is bad or not, but here's the conclusion, right. And then, yeah, they pretty much write what you just said. And boom. Article 1, Article 2, say nothing about financial disclosures. Rewrite. Yeah. Well, that is a good story. I should have covered it.
Well, I thought it was something you were interested in because you were bringing up the other thing that they were, the Texas thing. So I thought, in reverse, this is kind of the opposite.
Well, it looks like, so are they trying it again? Is that why this article is back, why it's back in the news? Let's see.
Yeah, apparently more states are. There are more states doing it. Somebody else brought it up. California just did it, I think.
Well,
I think Christine just brought it up.
Well, it'd probably end up in front of the Supreme Court then pretty quick. It would definitely get in there before before 2020 starts and when people have to start qualifying to get on ballots. So the Supreme Court would probably take it up pretty fast. I mean, you could definitely get 4 justices to say, yeah, we need to hear this now. So it'd probably get up pretty quick. And then they'd rule on it.
So there's like 12 or 18 states now that are either have done this or about to do this. And
this is really getting sickening.
Yeah, that seems
this is really getting sickening.
Mm-hmm,
they don't like the guy. The guy won, even though they said for 2 years he didn't win, fairly. And, just put up a good candidate against him. Nobody is unbeatable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you've got better ideas and I love it though. I mean, what are they going to say? Like on the economy, we can do better. Well, you didn't. And guess what? Nobody else has in the last 49 years. 49 years, okay, whatever's been tried hasn't worked as good as what he's doing. And it's this really weird combination of what he's doing, too, between trade and foreign investment in this country, low taxes, deregulation, where wages are going up, but inflation is staying steady, and employment is going up at the same time. It's a really weird occurrence. I mean, I think I said this the other night. Economists who've been schooled in economics for 40 years, having to go back and look at their old models and say, this doesn't fit into any model. There is no model. This is a new model that he just put together. And because everybody's trying to figure out why in the first quarter, when you're supposed to have higher increases in job claims, and you don't, and then at the same time, more people are working, which means more people are spending. You don't have inflation, and you have productivity going at the same time, and then you have GDP growth also going up, and nothing. There's no negative results. There's no inflation going up with it, causing interest rates to be raised. It's really strange. But if you don't like the guy, I mean, show me some policies that are better than what he's doing, other than he's just an obnoxious guy, which we all admit.
Yeah.
I say it all the time. He's obnoxious.
What's your platform?
Yeah, what is your
towards
platform?
man bad? What is your platform?
I mean, there was Governor Inslee from Governor Inslee from Oregon was on today, and he was talking about his version of the Green New Deal. And okay, so Green New Deal, Medicare for all, free college tuition, and reparations as the icing on the cake.
Mm-hmm.
And and nobody says how that's going to make our country better.
It seems an inverse. It's interesting to me. It's a direct inverse to how well we're doing. It's like the better the country's doing, the more they complain.
Yeah.
They get louder and squeakier.
Well,
sorry, I was moving a piece of furniture.
It doesn't make any sense.
They get. I mean, yeah, you would think to hear them complain that we had like literal slavery and women in chains being forced to reproduce and just full on racism, bigotry, sexism. We're pushing gay people off of buildings and all that. To hear them talk, it's like reality and the world that they live in do not coincide. And I just wonder, how did they convince so many people that it does? Because life isn't that bad. It's just in our country. It's not that bad. It is in other countries. But it isn't here.
Well, no, I was talking to a liberal friend of mine.
How do they get so much traction with all the doom and the gloom when we're not living the doom and the gloom? It's all in their head. It's a mental illness.
Well, I was talking to a liberal friend of mine.
Yeah.
And when I was talking to him, I took a line out of Dinesh D'Souza's movie because I knew he hadn't seen it, So I figured, I can use this, And he was telling us, well, I was talking about like other places in the world, how we're doing really good compared to them. And he goes, yeah, but we have corruption here too and stuff. I said, so I used a line from Dinesh D'Souza's movie. I said, it's funny. People in this country always want to compare ourselves to what our ideal of what we can be, the ideal, the perfect state, the perfect union, not a more perfect union, but the perfect union. Well, we're not there yet.
Right.
We're not there. But I said, anytime you do a side-by-side comparison with us versus any other country, pick one and see how we're doing, how we stack up. We do better, but you guys never do that. And he kind of looked at me. He hadn't seen the movie. So he didn't know that line was coming out of my mouth, He wasn't prepared for it. And he kind of looked at me like, yeah, you're right. And I'm like, okay. And then I walked away like, thank you, Dinesh D'Souza. Yee.
Yes. Yay,
but no, it's true, though.
Dinesh.
It's true, though, because, when he said that in the movie, it made me think myself because I'm guilty of the same shit. I always say, well, we could be better. Yeah. We could do this. We could do this. And then Dinesh was like, he's from India. So he's like, well, hey, wait a second. Compared to where I came from,
and then his wife, Carl, his wife is Venezuelan, so they both know some crap about
socialism. And Dinesh came from the caste system in India. Like he said, he would have been told who to marry, what job to do. Probably would never moved out within 10 miles of where he lived, where he grew up. His life was preordained to be stayed in India. So between her being...
Yeah, well, my favorite contemporary philosopher, Ravi Zacharias, is from India. He's a Christian philosopher. And
what's his name?
I'm sorry?
Ravi Zacharias?
Ravi Zacharias?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, R-Z-I, Ravi. Oh, yeah, you just look up some of his videos. He's very, very intellectual and interesting to listen to, and very... he's got a very kind demeanor, but he comes from that exact, he comes from India, so he's I have a couple of his books and his biography, and the India's a really messed up place to be from for most of the people that live there.
Okay.
It's
Hey, shout out to
thing.
DA Archer. Hey, American Joe. How you guys doing? But I'll have to check him out for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, you'd like him. His focus is he gives talk. Because of his respect and his demeanor, he's allowed in a lot of places in the world that other Christians are not allowed to speak, and he does give talks in front of people over the world, including Muslim nations, and because of his respect and his way of dealing with people. But I think he's a wonderful ambassador for the Christian faith. But he's also a very interesting person. When you get into his books and his videos, he's very interesting to listen to.
So a lot of philosophy, a lot of political philosophy, that kind of stuff.
I'm sorry.
A lot of philosophy, a lot of political philosophy, that kind of stuff, also.
Yeah, and he's also but he's also very. He gets to the crux of it, because most philosophy, I mean, if you study philosophy, which I have, most of it comes up short. It comes up very short, because it's like chewing bubble gum. You can chew and chew, but you're not going to end up anywhere. You just end up going around in circles. So back to the beginning. I mean, I read a book called The Tao of Pooh. Winnie the Pooh?
Yeah.
Somebody who knew that I read, philosophy, got me that book as a Christmas gift, and I read it, and I read most of it because it was, quick read, and I put it down about halfway through, and I was like, I really need to stop reading philosophy, because I looked at this, and it was silly, and it was mental bubblegum, and it was fun to read, but honestly, it was just as deep as anything I'd ever read in any other philosophy book, and it was about Winnie the Pooh and the Tao of Pooh, and they also had a companion, the Tay of Piglet. So I was not going to read that one, but my point being, it's a mental bubblegum, because there is a limitation to philosophy. It comes to the point of it brings you to a certain point, but it doesn't. There's no completion, and the completion is, of course, getting back to the Creator, and the Creator is God. And if your philosophy excludes God or makes something else into God, then you end up with just, nonsense that's been made up, and you're just chewing bubble gum to make yourself feel better.
Well,
so
the whole point
that's my philosophy on philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of political philosophy that goes back to the time of, Moses is, okay, how do you get people to live in groups together without killing each other? And provide a system of government where you have internal safety and security without having so much control that you get rid of people's basic human rights or the ability to think and be creative. Okay, and then also provide a certain security against external forces. I mean, every philosopher has toiled with this idea, troubled over it, and it comes down to, okay, how do we live in groups together? I can't remember the one philosopher. He drew kind of
taking their ideas from the macro and putting them into the practical.
Yeah,
and,
like Plato.
And
like Plato said,
where
the ultimate.
They come up short.
Yeah, like Plato's the ultimate city-state is 5,000 people. Well, that's good, except it doesn't protect you against external forces, external threats. You want a pure democracy, but you can't have any more than 5,000 people. Athens was like that. They voted on everything. And, of course, they ended up losing to the Spartans. It was like a dictatorship, kind of, in a way, but less free than Athens was. And so there's one philosopher, I can't remember, it's escaping my head right now, but he drew kind of a graph, and you had a little kind of line going up, for an inch. And then there was this point, this apex. And then it hit this point, and then the line started going
societal
back down.
Apex. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, you were talking about the societal apex and the society, which
right.
Sounds
and that point where it says is the line going up for an inch was the rise of man.
Yeah.
And then the line going down was the decline of man. And that point
Mm-hmm.
is when people start living in groups together. Because ever since, it's been,
Right.
a big downslide. Because nobody's ever able to figure out how to get us
Yeah.
all to live together in groups where we have enough freedom to be creative and, build things, but also enough security where we're not killing each other because of human nature. And that's
Right.
been like the point of,
Right.
and you see all the philosophers talking back and forth to each other through the centuries, writing on their works and writing and debating with each other and going back and forth. Hobbes and Locke, the
Yeah.
two famous ones
Which
from.
is the fundamental flaw of socialism. It's exactly what socialism is, which is it is trying to create morality where men can live together and create and what we perceive as good without God. And the limitation of that is we're not God, and that's where it ends up
Your phone's
failing
kind of
because, as you
your
said,
phone's kind of going off a little
seems
bit.
like. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It seems like. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Is this better?
Better.
That's better. Okay.
Yep.
That's funny. I stand next to my tools and my signal goes up. It's like it's metal.
Right.
So the limitation is philosophy of man is not philosophy of God, and to be ultimately limitation. Our perspective is limited. We're just human. So 5,000 people is the optimum number for city state. So what about an overwhelming force of barbarians? Oops, there's always going to be a but. What if this happens or
Okay, your
some
phone's
other
going
unforeseen?
your phone's going in and out again. It's like kind of like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I apologize. Let me try one more thing. I'm going to go to a completely different locale because I don't want to. If it doesn't work, I'll hang up.
No, well, don't hang up.
It's a beautiful evening.
Hey, Shonda. Oh, Shonda just gave you a shout out. She said, "Hey, Effie."
Hey, Shonda.
There you
Hey, Shonda. I can't type now because I'm on my back porch looking at the moon.
go.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's like 9 o'clock on the sky. I can see all the stars.
Yeah, that's good.
So, well, that
That's
gives you
good.
perspective.
That's good. Right there. Sounds good right there. Sounds good. You're doing good.
Oh, okay. You can. Yeah,
Definitely.
good. You can hear anything. Anyway, I don't want to get too deep into it. I just wanted to make that comparison. The limitations of philosophy of man versus the truth and the ultimate reality of the God that made us. We're always going to come up short. We're going to try. I understand dissing socialism / communism, for the monstrosity that it is, and believe me, I agree with that. But I also understand the perspective of people who really think that they're trying to organize society in the optimal way. And they think that they're doing good. It's just deception, self-deception. But it's just, to me, one more example of limited man-made philosophy.
Well, yeah, but do you really think? Okay, do you really think? Okay, we can hit the ideal of living as Jesus Christ?
No.
Right.
Absolutely not. We're
right.
we're all flawed, imperfect people.
Right.
So the best thing that we can do, knowing that reality, which is why I said we need God in our mix, is to go, okay, now what do we do with that truth, that reality? So
what do we do with it? We're all flawed. We're never going to live like Jesus did. Okay, and we're never going to get there. It's like getting to absolute zero, or which actually somebody got to, but still, you know my point. You can get closer and closer and closer and closer and closer, but you're never going to get there. So if we're never going to get there, the best we can do is keep trying.
Is the best that we can do is approach it from more than just an organizational standpoint. An organizational standpoint that is top down, or socialism, is not the approach to changing man, the heart of man. That's from the individual out. So from the
And how do you do
perspective of
that?
the
And how do
truth,
you, how do you do that and still live in a group?
well, we do that, don't we? I mean,
Well, we do it pretty well.
that's
I mean,
what
we
we
do
do.
it pretty well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the point is, how do we get better and better at doing it?
Well, that's what I was thinking. I think ultimately the best that we can do is approach people from that level, the level of individual and truth and morality, in the sense of it is your responsibility as an individual, X, Y, Z. And that is what then forms the mentality to create a government like ours in the United States. Because remember, when this constitutional republic was created, our forefathers warned, if you can keep it. And others said, this will only work if we're primarily a Judeo-Christian nation.
Right.
So
what
will tear us apart is losing that moral standing of the actual people who live in it. We tried to go to Iraq and nation build and give them the same kind of government. It didn't work because the people didn't have the same mentality.
Right.
It doesn't, and that's where our unity comes from. Our
right.
diversity, yeah, but our unity of thought comes from our Judeo-Christian ethic.
Right. In other words, when the founders wrote it up, they wrote it specifically not to be a police state. They depended on the people who were occupying the country at the time to still be occupying the country in the future, knowing that they would police themselves.
Exactly, that we had a foundation of morality that had to do with respecting the individual. The sovereignty of the individual comes from the Judeo-Christian ethic because we are endowed by our Creator with those inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's the Judeo-Christian ethic. So that's where it comes from.
Did you see my interview with that guy I did from the when I was at the Wild West Fair in Pahrump? Gerard Cote, the one where my voice was echoing.
I think I did.
Yeah, because I went back and listened to it.
Yeah,
yeah,
he's the leader of your
Sovereign
local
Nation.
Republican Party or something.
No. It was the next guy after that. The guy, Sovereign Nation guy.
Oh no, I didn't see that one.
Yeah,
I didn't see that one.
It was on Sunday, a week ago, and
I'll go back and look.
He's part of. It's called the. I have a link there. I think it's Sovereign Nation, and he talks about that. He talks about like how it was a like America happened. It was almost like a divine inspiration. Let me see if I can pull up. Let me see here. I got an email from him. Let's see if I can get it. Hold on.
Yeah, because our government is not top-down socialism. It is our government is us. The highest form of authority in as far as institutioned in this, institutionally in our Constitution, the highest form of authority is the individual. So, valuing that, understanding that, that's where the change comes. That's where bringing people that have been maleducated by leftist indoctrination back to the understanding, the primary understanding of the sovereignty of the individual is how we keep our nation. And it's how we lose our nation if we don't do it.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull this up here. Sovereign Hope. Let's see if I can. I want to try to send it to you. Let's see. So you can have it in front of you. There's a way to do it.
So if you want to save our nation, grab a young person and teach them about the Constitution and what it really means. That is
right.
And
he writes,
while you're at it, make sure they know who God is and who they are, as far as created being endowed with rights by that Creator.
Yeah, he writes things like every human being is similar from physical to emotional, and at the same time, we are all unique. Let's see.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'll shoot it to
Unity
you.
and diversity.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get him on again because and like do like an interview one night with him. It'll just be us like on a video call, and he's with Sovereign Hope, and it's www.sovereignhope.org. And it was a real interesting interview. Yeah, it was the show I did right after I did the interview with the Republican Party leader, and I think you'd probably like it for sure. And check it out. It just go back a week. It's in between my you'll see the Republican leader and then county chairman, and then my Monday night. It's sandwiched right between those two, and you can't miss it because my voice is echoing. I had the gain up on his microphone too much, so I was talking across
Hmm.
to him, and so his mic was picking up my voice, and my mic was picking up my voice. So I had two of me coming through at the same time, with a little delay. But luckily, I didn't talk a
So,
lot. He did most of the
so it
talking.
sounded like Phil Spector produced your video, and you had a wall of sound going, basically.
Right. In fact, I even thought later, I'll put up a little glass shield, like a sneeze plate, between me and the interviewer person next time. Yeah. Well, my interview in the morning
You're
went
getting
good.
so high tech.
Yeah.
I'm so
Well,
jealous. You have all this stuff.
I know I have a mixer board, audio interface, all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
You have two tents, not just one tent, but two tents
I
to
did
take to
two
the fairs.
tents. That's right. Did 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 two
That
tents.
could be your native name. We'll call you
Two
Carl Two
tent.
Tents.
Yeah, hold on. Let me see here. Let me find it real quick here. Let's see. Search me. Let's see. This might have been it right here. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Hold on. Let's see. There we go. Okay, let me punch this up. Yep, there I was. It'll be up in a couple of seconds for you. Everybody else can see it right now, but yeah, you'll see it in a few seconds. But yeah, at the 210 setup, and what I did is, like, you'll see the chairs right behind the. I'll give you a couple of seconds so you'll be able to see it on your screen. Like I said, I got the delay going on here. Uh, YouTube delay. It's like 14 seconds, 15 seconds. Let's see.
Oh,
There it is. Okay,
okay.
you should be able to see it right now on your screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I had is,
There it is.
yep, I had the two tents, and then in between the two tents, I had like one of those outside um, tarps. Like you see that tarp like on the outside of the one tent. Well, I had extra ones obviously, so I strung one underneath the two to keep the sun off. And where those chairs are, that's where the people I was interviewing sat. And then I had a camera off to the side as well, so I could shoot a far angle. So I had three cameras: one on me, one on the person I was interviewing, and then one camera that you could. I shot it so you could see both of us. And then I had artificial lighting I got from Amazon, and yeah, it was pretty cool. It was fun. I had a good time. You like the scales of
Yep.
justice?
Yes. It's a lovely setup, and the color scheme is very patriotic, and I'm all kinds of jealous. So
Well, don't
all
be
I
too
built was a
jealous. It took
website,
a
you
lot
know.
of work to put that together, so don't be real jealous. It was okay, that was a 3 day event, right? Well, I'm in a park, and so pretty much except for the tables, chairs, and the tents, everything had to go home every night and be set back up in the morning. The computers, mixer board, cables, lighting. You couldn't leave anything behind. I mean, the homeless people would come and take it. That little tarp isn't going to keep a homeless person from going and stealing shit and going down to the pawn shop. So I mean, I was there before
Sure.
6 a.m. every morning. I didn't leave the park till about 10:30 at night, 10:30. So yeah, so don't be too jealous.
Yeah, Jervis, Carl's an attorney. That's why I'm always asking him legal type questions. That's kind of our shtick. I ask him legal questions, and then he gets to flex his big attorney muscles at us. So,
Oh, there we
yeah,
go.
he's an
That's it.
attorney.
You're my straight man. You do the setup for me for the attorney
I,
stuff. Yeah.
I guess yes. I set up the legal lawyer type attorney questions for you there, and you can see your those little cartoon cogs going in your head. Like, hold on, let me see if I know that one.
Yeah, no, but that 210
Hello.
setup was better because when I did the chili cook-off event, that was only a 2-day event. I only had the 110, and the people I was interviewing were sitting outside of it. Well, the sun was terrible on them because the shadows and everything, and I couldn't control it. So that's why I did the 210 setup. So I'd have them sitting under a canopy also. So the sun wouldn't
Right,
be
right. So
interfering
we're
with the
going to
picture.
call you Mr. Carl 210 from now on.
Carl 210.
I like that
I'll take
name,
that. I'll take
Carl
Carl 210.
210.
No problem. But what time is it? Oh, shit. Oh, I got to get up and go to work in the morning.
Oh
Damn.
shit, it's late. You got to go to work in the morning. I'm
You
already
got
at work, so I'm okay.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
You're already
never late.
doing your architecture, building the next building and stuff. But well, you do
I've
all
got other
kinds of stuff.
projects too. We'll talk about that at another time.
Oh, Jesus. Damn, what don't you do? Shit. Well, anyway, it's
Well,
go ahead.
another word for a Renaissance man, Carl. A woman.
Oh, shut up. Oh, God. You got to put that on my site. Where's the zombie? Get the zombie back again. All right, the zombie. Get
I'm
the
trolling
zombie.
again.
There we go.
Sorry, I can't help myself.
But no, that's fair. Considering everything you do, shit, you could definitely say that, without a doubt. But okay, I tell you what. Thank you, Miss Effie Real. And end the phone
You're
call,
welcome, Mr. Carl.
and then I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream for the night. So anyway,
Okay, I'll let you go. Good
all
night.
right, young lady. Thank you so much. Thanks for the great phone call. You have a good night. Okay.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
All right. Bye bye. And of course, that was the great Effie Real. Another great phone call. She's been on our panels before as well. Definitely brings a lot of insight and analysis to our panel discussions. We haven't done one of those panels in a while now. I think it's been a few weeks, but we'll definitely get one of those back up again. We've done the 9-panel, 8 guests and myself, and I think it works better probably with like 5 guests and myself. It's more manageable as far as the audio and everything. And the people on the panel get to speak more often because, of course, there's only 5 people instead of 8 plus me. So it works out a little bit better. I thought it's also a little better visually too. But yeah, we'll definitely get one of those panels up again, going again, and stuff like that. So, but hey, I just want to thank everybody who's been in the chat tonight. Everybody's been viewing. Everybody who'll be viewing later. And for Carl's opinion, this is Carl. Have a great night, everyone, and thanks for coming by. Bye bye.